Live from the College Football Hall of Fame, this is the Rob Brown Show. This is the Fan Upstate. Rob Brown with you today. The great one, Lonzo, back in the network studio.
Hi.
Great to have all of you with us this beautiful Tuesday morning as we roll through day 2 of the Southeastern Conference Media Days. Wanted to talk for just a moment about the experience yesterday to get us started here. The Gamecocks showed up about 8 a.m. They were the morning session, one of the two teams in the morning session, along with the LSU Fighting Tigers out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And there were two things about the Gamecocks day yesterday that jumped off the page at me. The first thing that jumped off the page at me yesterday was the fact that it was very clear and evident that LaNorris Sellers will be, along with Arch Manning, I believe, the two most visible and sought after athletes in the Southeastern Conference. When the Gamecocks arrived here about 8 a.m. yesterday, and there was no announcement about what time they would roll into the College Football Hall of Fame. We knew when they posted in the AM that they were getting on an airplane from Columbia to fly here. But outside of that, there wasn't any announcement that, they'll be walking through the CFB Hall of Fame entrance at blank o'clock in the morning. They just kind of knew they were on the way, and that was it. So where I'm sitting here on the second floor of the College Football Hall of Fame, when I look down to my left, I can see the entrance, the rotunda, where the teams are walking in. And there is a de facto game day tunnel set up when the teams come in. On the facing out right side, there is a rope, and the media has access to that side, so we can go down there and snap pictures of the players and the coaches as they interact with the fans who are on the other side of the tunnel. And there is a partition that runs across the entrance to the College Football Hall of Fame, which is shut down for SEC Media Days. There is a rope, and so fans can come in the entrance, but they can't get past the rope, but they can interact with the players and the coaches as they walk by. And I assume that when Georgia and Kirby Smart have their media day, that is probably going to be absolutely packed when they come through. There was a healthy contingent of Gamecock fans down there yesterday. And once they came through, that area largely cleared out. Though most of the activity of Shane Beamer and LaNorris Sellers and the rest of the Gamecocks was taking place while we were on the air, as I am sitting perched above the media pit looking down below me where the coaches give their keynote address and where the two press conference tables are to be used throughout the day, I've got a pretty good view of what's happening down there. And anytime that LaNorris Sellers was moving from spot A to spot B, whether it was from the first press conference table to the second, or it was from the main stage to the SEC network stage, or it was from wherever down in the media pit, he had, and this included Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia, who was here yesterday, LaNorris Sellers had without doubt and question the largest contingent of media following him around. Then, during the day yesterday, as LaNorris and Shane Beamer were taking their tour of Digital Drive, or as we call it in the old school, Radio Row, anytime that they would bounce from station to station, and I will keep it a buck, LaNorris and Shane were primarily doing the big national outlets, right? So they were doing Greg McElroy's podcast, and they were doing Josh Pate is over there doing his show live from SEC Media Days, and Crane and Company are here doing their big pod that has gone national the last couple of years. As I looked around and watched these guys, they were primarily doing, Shane and LaNorris, the big national shows. DQ Smith and Nick Barrett, who I'm very grateful took a few minutes to chat, were doing most of the local radio outlets yesterday. As I watched Shane and Lenoris make their way around the building, whenever they would move from show A to show B, they were being followed by a relatively large media contingent of people asking a question or two while they're walking. Now, we are, as they are at ACC Media Days as well, which we've covered the last couple of years. The players, as they are making their way around, the players are not to be interrupted, right? Like they are on a tight schedule. They are on a tight schedule from finishing up one interview and getting to the next. So if you are walking with them, you can't stop them. You can pretty much put a camera in their face, hold up a Twitter microphone or whatever, and you got a question maybe or two, and you're not the only one. These two guys, in fact, around 11:30 or so, I was sitting here. I was cutting up some audio that we're going to play for you on the show today. But as I was sitting here cutting up audio, Shane walked right in front of me. And when he walked by, there had to be 25, 30 people following him, media people with cameras and microphones trying to get clips. Lenoris walked by about 6 minutes later, making his way up to the front because most of the big national streams, CBS, ESPN, all of the big networks, they're up in the front of the College Football Hall of Fame. When Lenoris walked by, man, he looked like a rock star. I mean, a gaggle of folks that were following him. And over the past, 24 hours, as I have kind of become one of the South Carolina guys here, I believe we're the only local station that is covering South Carolina here at Media Days. I got asked to go on a couple of interviews yesterday on different stations and different networks. And when I did, the heart and soul of the conversation on every one of them was almost exclusively, hey, tell us about Lenoris Sellers. Tell us about who this guy is. Tell us about what this guy's doing. Tell us about what makes him special. We heard about the $4 million NIL offer that his father said he turned down. Why would he do that? Tell us about this. Tell us about the other. This guy is, I am going to say, going to be one of the top, I would say, 2 or 3 most visible college football players this year. I think we know the biggest names. Arch Manning is obviously at the top of this list. Lonzo's wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith, is obviously at the top of this list. There are a handful of guys, most of them the Heisman favorites. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, Cade Klubnik at Clemson, Julian Sayin at Ohio State. There are a handful of guys, but I think when you look at those, you are looking at guys who are playing for teams that are considered nationally to be national championship contenders. Arch Manning playing at Texas. They are an odds-on favorite. Garrett Nussmeier at LSU, considered maybe not a championship favorite, but certainly a playoff favorite, certainly a team that is expected to perform, mainly only to save Brian Kelly's job. Cade Klubnik at Clemson, national championship contender. Jeremiah Smith and Julian Sayin at Ohio State, championship contender. Drew Aller at Penn State, championship contender, and guy who is expected to be a top 3, top 5 pick in the NFL draft next year. Dante Moore at Oregon. If Oregon can win the Big Ten again this year, championship contender. Lenoris Sellers, I think, playing for South Carolina, who is not a national championship contender, or at least not in the eyes of the national media. Now, we're going to hear some clips from Shane Beamer on his press conference yesterday. In fact, he got into a bit of a heated debate with Paul Feinbaum yesterday because Feinbaum effectively said to Shane that winning the SEC is not possible for South Carolina. It's a paraphrase. It's pretty close. He did it so in a way, and good on Paul, he's the ace. He did so in a way that he didn't explicitly say, y'all can't win the conference, but he kind of tiptoed around that sentiment yesterday morning. And Shane wasn't really having it. He said, look, we have everything we need to do all that we need to do at South Carolina. Now, I was on with Colin Diesel yesterday afternoon, and I pointed out that there's a little politicking here, and I'm not upset about it. It's part of the job of a head football coach at a major university is to politic a little bit. But Shane never specifically said what it is that they have all they need to do it. He didn't say, well, it's win the SEC championship, or it's make the playoff, or it's go to a major bowl. He didn't specifically say any of that. And that is why later on in the week, I'm going to ask you, what is it? In fact, we may even do that today. What is it? What is the thing that we believe is it that South Carolina can do when Shane Beamer says that? But he pushed back on Paul a little bit, and he said, look, we have all we need to do what we need to do. And being the star, as Lenoris is, of a team that is on the outside looking in the eyes of the national media and in the eyes of college football fans nationally, yet still to be a guy that is inside the top 7 or 8 shortest odds to win the Heisman, to still be a guy that is being tossed around as a Davey O'Brien winner, to still be a guy that is being discussed as a front runner for best quarterback in the United States of America at the college football level this year. It was evident yesterday that the eyes of the college football world are going to be turned on this kid this year. It was evident yesterday that he is going to be getting the majority of the attention for South Carolina, sure, but it is evident that he is being viewed by the national media as a dude that is going to be discussed a lot this year. He was walking around yesterday looking like an absolute rock star with a gaggle of groupies following him around. So the pressure's on this kid. The pressure's on this young man, because how many times have we said, as goes Lenoir Sellers, go the Gamecocks? And I think it's a fair statement to make. If he lives up to the expectations, Shane Beamer will accomplish it. So when we come back, let's talk about what it is. Bill Clinton style. It depends on what your definition of the word is. What is it? What is the goal? We'll talk about that next on the Rob Brown Show on the Fan of State.
Fanatics.
Yeah, but I can just do that on Commerce. I don't need to be on stream for that, right?
Live from SEC Media Days at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, you're listening to a special edition of the Rob Brown Show.
along for the ride. The stream, by the way, is up and running. For those of you that missed us yesterday, worry not, my dear friends. We're back. You're welcome. Took a little technological resourcefulness on behalf of your boy to get it all worked out, but alas, we have accomplished the impossible. Reach for the stars. Even if you miss, you'll land on the moon, or whatever that stupid expression is.
Yeah, I don't think I heard that you'll land on the moon.
No,
before.
yeah, it's the other way around. Shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars, which is dumb because the nearest star is like 4.5 million light years away. So you're never going to get there. Unless we invent like cryostasis or something.
And if you're not in a vehicle, if you shoot for the moon and you miss, you're out in space floating and you're going to die.
Yeah, there's also that. So I believe it is intended to be metaphorical, but you know. All right, here's the question that I would like to pose to you Gamecocks. And I will tell you that because yesterday was getting a lay of the land, was getting used to what was going on, I promise I will be more active on the text line today. The text line is up and running, the Hub City Spartanburger text line at 844-326-3663, 844-FANFONE. I would like to ask you the question this morning, what is it for Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks? And here's why I ask that question. Yesterday morning, Shane was on the SEC network with Paul Feinbaum and the rest of the talking heads on ESPN. And Paul Feinbaum, paraphrasing, and did not openly say this, but he effectively insinuated that the South Carolina Gamecocks cannot win the Southeastern Conference. And if we are being objective in this conversation, I don't think that is harsh. Some of you might. This is every year a difficult conference. And this year has not just a pair of front runners for the national championship in the Texas Longhorns and the Georgia Bulldogs, but there are also a host of other teams that are desperate and right on the cusp. I talk, of course, about the Alabama Crimson Tide under Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer, how many times have we said, nobody wants to be the dude that follows the dude, but even worse than that, nobody wants to be the guy who follows the GOAT. And he steps into the shoes of Nick Saban. This is year number 2. And unfortunately for Kalen DeBoer, there are 2 things working against him. The first is that he is following Nick Saban. This is a guy that got Alabama fans used to being in the national championship conversation every single year. And those expectations have not gone anywhere and probably will not for a number of years. So Kalen DeBoer is expected to have this team in that conversation. The second thing that Kalen DeBoer is having to deal with this year is the fact that expectations are elevated and he brings an entirely different flavor of coaching to that school. Whereas Nick Saban was, I don't know what other word to use here. The only word I have is the word that my father would use to describe him, which is he's a hard ass, man. He's the Nick Tater. He is a dude that it is going to be my way all the time, no question. And if you got a problem with that, you can go play your college football somewhere else. Kalen DeBoer doesn't have that vibe about him. In fact, there was a big conversation going down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, just a few weeks ago during spring practices, because apparently after one of the spring practices were over, Kalen DeBoer had an ice cream truck show up at spring practice so that the boys could get themselves a frozen little sweet treat out on the field in the Tuscaloosa sunshine. Now, I don't really have a problem with that, all right? But I'm not an Alabama fan. It doesn't really matter if I have a problem with that or not. A lot of Alabama fans did, because that is not the Nick Saban way. Now, despite the fact that Nick would take the boys out and they would go tubing out on the lake and whatever, he had fun with the guys. But I think it's more of an optics thing, and a dumb one, but an optics thing to a lot of fans. The LSU Tigers are in this division. I don't know that Brian Kelly is yet on the hot seat. I do know that in my conversations yesterday around SEC Media Days, a lot of people here think he might be, or that if he is not, that if LSU does not reach the playoffs this year, that if LSU is not in the last week of the season at least a contender for the SEC championship, that Brian Kelly will be on the hot seat this year. They've got the talent. We talked about the most visible players in college football. Garrett Nussmeier is one of them. In fact, I heard Peter Burns yesterday from the SEC Network, who will be joining us this afternoon about 1:20. We will cut up that interview for you and play it back for you on tomorrow's show. Peter Burns, who I got the chance to speak to for 2 or 3 minutes yesterday, said he believes that Garrett Nussmeier may be the best returning quarterback in college football this year and expects a whale of a season out of him. That's a good team. That is a team that will be competing for an SEC championship this year. We have mentioned the Georgia Bulldogs under Kirby Smart. That is a team that has national championship aspirations, not SEC title game aspirations, although they do have those. They have natty aspirations this year. So it is a deep conference. And that's not even to bring into the conversation Mike Elko in his second year at Texas A&M. I was on an A&M pod yesterday. They are electric around Mike Elko right now. That's not even to bring in Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. He is very excited about his young quarterback this year, says that he thinks he can be better than Jackson Dart was at Ole Miss last year. So we're talking probably 3 teams that are legitimately national championship contenders and probably 3 to 4 more that are national championship hopefuls. So Paul Feinbaum kind of danced around Shane Beamer saying, you can't win the SEC title this year. It's too deep of a conference. And Shane Beamer responded to him by saying, we have everything we need to do what we want to do it. But he did not say what it is, whether it is get to the SEC championship. Is it win the SEC championship? Is it make it into the college football playoffs, either as conference champion or as an at-large selection? Is it make it in and win a game? Is it make it in and win and get to the quarters or the semis or the national championship? The only issue that I took yesterday with Shane Beamer, I shouldn't say from Shane Beamer, took a lot from Shane Beamer. We're going to play you some audio in the next hour of the show of what Shane had to say. But the only thing that I really took issue with from Shane Beamer was that we never really had the goals defined. Now, obviously, I think the goal for every coach is win a natty, win the conference, get to the playoffs. Sure. But I feel like, and I said this to DQ Smith, we'll play his interview in the next hour as well. I said to DQ yesterday, this feels like a university, a football program that for the past couple of years, and I'm going to say this, and then Lonzo, I want your reaction to tell me if I'm being too harsh, I'm being too much of an idealistic. You give me your response to this. The last 4 years under Shane Beamer have been excellent in terms of culture building. The fans are beyond excited. We felt the buzz when he showed up. The welcome home banners are getting hung. That stadium in the 3 games I've been to is as electric as any stadium I've been to. The culture building in Columbia has been chef's kiss magnificent. But at some point, it's got to start translating to success. Now, obviously, last year, this team was 1 win away from the playoffs. If the LSU game flips, if the Alabama game flips, either one of those 2 L's, both of which were winnable games. One you lost because you shot yourself in the foot. One you lost, in my opinion, because you got it stolen from you by some guys in stripes. Either one of those 2 games flips the other way. I think the South Carolina Gamecocks are either the 11 or the 12 seed in the playoffs. But they weren't. That wasn't it this year. Last year. So is it fair to say that this year is a year where the expectations are that as a baseline? That be a game out at the absolute worst is an expectation? Or is it fair to say that we've done enough culture building? It's been 4 years. You're ingrained. You're established. All the guys in that roster are your guys now. It is time to translate this into the next level of success, which is be a contender for the SEC Conference Championship and to be in the playoffs. What is it this year, Alonzo?
Well, first of all, it took a while to get that Muschamp stank out of the building.
Sure.
And I think it's finally gone. And you see as it slowly left, because it didn't want to leave, that the fans started believing again. The team started believing again. I think you need to make the playoff this year, without a doubt, especially being that close last year. And as long as LaNorris Sellers stays healthy, I think it's definitely a possibility.
I do too. And again, I know the war cry has kind of been as go LaNorris, go the Gamecocks. And I don't think it's unfair. I will say this. I said this yesterday on, I forget, I was doing another radio show in, Texas. I don't remember. But I was doing another radio show, and I said, the expectations are high on this kid, and here's the reason why. And maybe we're putting too much pressure on the guy. I want to talk about this later in the show. Are we putting too much pressure on LaNorris Sellers? But the take I had yesterday was, this is the opportunity for South Carolina to have their Cam Newton. This is the opportunity for South Carolina to have their Tim Tebow. And I'm not saying that LaNorris Sellers is going to reach the levels of Tim Tebow or reach the levels of Cam Newton. And obviously, he's likely only got 1 year left in Columbia. But this is the opportunity for South Carolina to have a guy that his jersey is going to be hanging in this building sometime in the future. And it feels to me if they do not accomplish something with him this year, whether that's contend for the SEC, be in the SEC championship game, be in the playoff, win a playoff game, win 2, win 3, make the natty, win the natty. It feels like if they don't accomplish something this year, that it might be the waste of their Cam Newton, their Tim Tebow. And I think that might be the biggest disappointment. South Carolina fans, what is it for you? What is a real goal that you believe Shane Beamer will say, we hit our goals this year? 844-326-3663. Text me your answer or use that number and call the show. 844-FAN-FONE. We'll talk more about this in the next hour. Time for a sports flash.
Speaking of hitting a goal, your 2025 Home Run Derby champion in Seattle's Cal, the Big Dumper, Raleigh. It's the first time I said it on the air. I'm sure Rob is proud.
I love
Raleigh
this so
faced
much.
Tampa's Junior Caminero in the final, hitting 18 to Caminero's 15 in the last round. Raleigh becomes just the second Mariner to win the event behind Ken Griffey Jr., who won the event twice. The New York Jets have signed wide receiver Garrett Wilson to a 4-year, $130 million contract to stay with the team, including $90 million guaranteed. The contract marks the first time a wide receiver has been paid more than $31 million after just 3 seasons in the league. Philadelphia 76ers star Paul George has undergone arthroscopic knee surgery, according to sources. Surgery was in response to an injury suffered in practice and follows a season in which George played only 41 games due to a string of injuries. Guy can get a break, I guess.
Up to the minute upstate traffic. It looks like they've picked up and cleared out that road work causing delays northbound 85.
Felt bad about that one.
Spartanburg.
That's
so
okay.
I can report to you that right now I-85 is running at posted speeds from stem to stern. The I-385 exit to northbound 85 is closed this morning, so plan an alternate route. Wade Hampton is also smooth sailing. From the News Stop 98.9 WORD Traffic Center, I'm Bill Brooks on The Fan.
Georgia, running it all 4 days in live and living color. Great to have you all along for the ride this AM. I am Rob Brown, the great one, Lonzo, back in the network studio and in charge of all the sounds gently entering your ear holes this lovely Tuesday morning. Gamecock fans, I am looking for you this morning. We are here at this event because of you. Clemson fans, you hold your pretty little horses because next week we will be in Charlotte, North Carolina for the ACC's Media Days, live in downtown Charlotte, North Carolina, covering your team and the other teams inside of the Atlantic Coast Conference. But it is Gamecock week here on the show, here on the broadcast, here on the station from the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia. And we are going to talk extensively about the Gamecocks coming up and moving forward, in large part because yesterday was Gamecock Day. We had the opportunity to sit down with DQ Smith, a senior defensive back, Nick Barrett, a senior defensive tackle from the Gamecocks. We also picked up some sound from the press conferences and the speeches given by Lenora Sellers and by head coach Shane Beamer. We will run you some sound from those later on. And honestly, they gave us enough. I'll probably be playing Gamecock sound throughout the rest of the week. But today on the docket, as yesterday we knocked out the South Carolina Gamecocks, the LSU Tigers, the Ole Miss Runnin' Rebels, and the Vanderbilt Commodores. Today's teams in the morning session, Auburn and Georgia, the oldest rivalry in the South, will be featured in the AM section, and then Tennessee and Texas roll through in the afternoon session. So we will hear from the head coaches. And before I go any further, I'm going to tell you this great one. Clark Lee, head coach of the Vanderbilt Commodores, was here yesterday. And last year, we played a lot of his halftime speeches when he was getting the boys pumped out there in Vanderbilt, out there in Nashville, Tennessee. Hearing that dude speak in person, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a 40-year-old dude. My football days are long behind me. But if I was a 17-year-old kid deciding where to go play football, Clark Lee would be way high on that list. Like that dude yesterday, just in his speech. I noticed something. He spoke on this podium right here behind me. And for those of you looking on the stream is up and running, by the way, facebook.com/TheFanUpstate, TheFanUpstate on Twitter, TheFanUpstate on YouTube, The Rob Brown Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. You can actually see behind me down here. That's where's my finger? There it is. There's the podium that the coaches are speaking from. So most of these guys yesterday, Shane, Lane Kiffin, they went up there and they had their big folder and they opened it up and they had a sheet of paper and had their speech on it. Clark Lee spoke yesterday, Lonzo, for nearly 45 minutes and did not have a note in front of him. Not one. He had a little folder. It never opened. He was never shuffling through paper. He didn't have a bullet point list. He didn't have a speech prepared. That man came off the noggin about the Vanderbilt Commodore football program for 40 minutes at that podium. And I will tell you that a couple of times, because we got a little sound box that we're able to tap in and listen to what is being said. I tapped in for a few minutes towards the end of Clark Lee's speech in the afternoon. And I listened for probably 15, 20 minutes. I would run through a brick wall for that man. You want to talk about a dude. We talk about this in recruiting, right? Like, yes, NIL's a thing. Yes, transfer portal's a thing. Yes, there are a lot of kids who are going to take a recruitment and are going to commit for the money. There are a lot of kids who are going to commit for a lot of different reasons. I have been saying, the reason a lot of the coaches hate this stuff is not because kids get to do what they want to do. It's because their job's harder now. They have to not just recruit kids out of high school, but they got to recruit kids out of the portal. And you also have to recruit the kids that you've already recruited. You've got to get them a reason to stay, to want to maintain their relationship with your program. One of the things I've said about that is you better find a kid who loves what you do, whether it is because you offer them a degree they can't get anywhere else, whether it is you offer them a locker room environment they can't get anywhere else, whether it is because you offer them amenities that no other school can offer them, whether it's because you got the prettiest cheerleaders in the game, whatever your reason is, you better recruit the kids in your program and make them say, This is the best place for me. It does not matter if another school calls and offers me $4 million to come play for them for 2 years. I love it here, and I'm being taken care of. I'm not going anywhere. But here's the thing. In order to convince a kid of that, I believe you got to have a coach that feels the same way. I believe if you want to convince a kid that they should want to not only come to your school, but they should want to stay at your school and play at your school and be a part of your institution for more than just a year. So that when the phone starts ringing and when the agent says, hey, man, we got this offer and that school's got this and this place over here has signed this deal with this NIL company and I think I can get you in the door, whatever, that kid goes, nah, I love my coach. I'm getting paid enough money here, and I love what is happening at the program. In order to convince a college kid that that is true, I genuinely believe that they have got to be playing for a coach who believes that that is true, a coach that is truly bought into the program and loves what they're doing. This is one of the reasons that I look at a guy like a Brian Kelly at LSU. I don't know if I believe that about that guy. I don't know if I believe that, or LSU was just a place that gave him the most money to get him up out of Notre Dame. But regardless of how you feel about that, I listened to Clark Lee come off the top of the noggin about Vanderbilt Commodore football for 40 minutes yesterday. No notes, no prepared speech. And I mean, unless he just memorized it, which is a possibility. But this dude, he talked about Vanderbilt Commodore football, great one. I don't know how else to put it. He talked about Commodore football like the way I talk about my wife, like the way I talk about bourbon, like the way that I talk about bacon, like my favorite things in life. You could walk up to me if I'm sitting at a bar and I'm sipping on a glass of my favorite bourbon, which right now, big Angels Envy guy, Devil's Cut if you can find it. If you walk up to me in a bar, and I'm sitting there sipping a glass of bourbon, and you say, Rob Brown, tell me about Angels Envy and why you love it, I'll go 40 minutes off the rip about why it's good. If you walk up to me and you say, Rob Brown, tell me about your wife and all the reasons that you were head over heels in love with her, I will go an hour and 40 minutes off the rip about all the ways that she makes me happy and makes my life better for it. That's the way this guy was talking about the Vanderbilt Commodores yesterday. It was very evident that it is not a sales pitch. It is not fraudulent. It is not something that he is doing just to try to get any attention that he can get for the doors. And trust me, they need it. This dude was a dude who genuinely loves that institution, that program, and the culture that he's building within the football team. I'm not saying that I expect the Vanderbilt Commodores to be competing for an SEC championship anytime soon. I am saying that as long as Clark Lee is there, I would not be shocked over the next few years if we start seeing some guys that might have offers to, I'm not going to say Georgia, but maybe they have offers to an Ole Miss. Maybe they have offers to a Mississippi State. Maybe they have an offer to Arkansas or a Kentucky. Some of those second and third tier SEC schools start to say, I'm going to run through a wall for Clark Lee and the Vanderbilt Commodores. Diego Pavia is fighting in court to be able to stay there and do that more. There are a number of guys on that program that could have transferred out and decided to stay. There's really no point to this for those of you that don't care about Vanderbilt football, other than to tell you, Lonzo, when you get a Clark Lee or when you get a Shane Beamer or when you get a Dabo Swinney, when you get one of these guys who it is clear and evident, it is not fraudulent like it is with a lot of coaches, that they genuinely love the institution and the culture they are building at it, that's how you take your college football program to the next level. That's how you get that done. And it was incredible to listen to this guy talk yesterday. I'm going to talk more about that later on in the show, but it is 7:10 in the morning. And now we have to run an accelerated version of that thing we do every morning at 7 o'clock when I tell you the things you're going to be talking about when you get into work. That thing you do when we do this.
Are you ready for the playbook of the peculiar, the almanac of the absurd, and the encyclopedia of the extraordinary? Well, you better be, because we're diving headfirst into the 3 top stories that will have your coworkers saying, "Shut the hell up," even before they take their first bathroom break.
No.
Here we go. Welcome to the water cooler cheat sheet on the Fan Upstate.
It is the water cooler cheat sheet, the top 3 sports stories you need to know before you get to the office this morning and start talking sports with your coworkers. This is what you're going to be talking about. Let us dive right in with item number 1. The lawsuit between 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports in NASCAR just got a little bit more interesting. If you have been following this story as a NASCAR fan, you already know that it has gotten ugly. Why? Because just a handful of days ago, a judge said that chunks of the lawsuit presented by those two racing outfits, effectively an antitrust lawsuit being brought forward by Michael Jordan's 23XI and Front Row Motorsports, they said, look, there's nowhere else for us to go race and make money. NASCAR holds a monopoly, and in holding the monopoly, they make us do a bunch of stuff we don't want to do, and that ain't right. Well, the first time that went in front of a judge, the judge said, hold your horses. Actually, they are good because of this, and this. Well, that led to a big problem for 23XI and Front Row Motorsports, who hold 6 collective charters that allow them to just have cars in every NASCAR race. Tomorrow, NASCAR is scheduled to yank those charters from those teams and sell them to other teams. That would be a massive problem for 23XI and Front Row, because if those teams do indeed lose their charter tomorrow, NASCAR has already indicated that they will sell those charters off. And those charters are the only way to ensure that you have cars in every NASCAR race. If those charters are yanked from 23XI and Front Row Motorsports, the drivers for those two organizations would then have to race their way into every race the remainder of the year. So how are they combating this? Well, 23XI and Front Row have reached back out to the court and yesterday filed for a temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction to be recognized as charter institutions for the remainder of 2025. Effectively, they have said to the court, look, there's a lot more to this lawsuit. There's a lot that has to be said, has to be done, has to be debated, and has to be ruled on. And we don't think NASCAR should be allowed to pull our charter and sell them off while we are still going through this process, because if they do, we're boned, dude. So they have submitted for a temporary restraining order and injunction against NASCAR to prevent them from pulling and selling the charters. If they do not get that, it is bad news for 23XI and Front Row. If they do get it, they will likely be allowed to race the rest of this year while that court issue goes the rest of the way to the top. We're going to circle back around to that later, because that is a very interesting story. Let's get, though, to item number 2. It is All-Star Weekend here in Atlanta, Georgia, and festivity numero uno last night, the Home Run Derby. Seattle Mariners star and current MLB home run leader Cal Raleigh became the first catcher to win the All-Star Home Run Derby and the second Seattle Mariner behind Ken Griffey Jr. He won it twice. Cal, the big dumper Raleigh, is now Mariner number 2. Raleigh was pitched to by his father, Todd, the former coach of Tennessee and Western Carolina. Raleigh's younger brother, Todd Raleigh Jr., did the catching. Cal's dad said after the event, quote, anybody that's ever played baseball as a kid dreams of stuff like this. I dreamed of it. He dreamed of it. And when you're a parent, you look at it differently because you want your kid to be healthy. Raleigh was almost eliminated in the opening round when he and Athletics outfielder Brent Rooker tied with 17 home runs, but the tiebreaker was the longest home run hit. Cal Raleigh's home run traveled 470 plus 0.61 feet to Rooker's 470.53. He won by 0.8 feet. And as we all know, those measurements are just very exact and precise, like just spot on, exact and precise. Cal Raleigh was able to escape the opening round. He would face in the finals Tampa's Junior Caminero. The two of them had an absolute slugfest. Caminero was down 3 with 1 out to go and could not find the outfield fence. O'Neal Cruz was a monster, put on a show, including a 513-foot home run, the longest of the evening. He is the 6th player to hit a Derby home run of 500-plus feet since StatCast started recording back in 2016. Only the 2nd to do so outside of Coors Field. I'm going to say one more thing as a fan, and then we'll get to item number 3. I've been to Truist Park many times. I have seen many a home run hit out to right field. They got a restaurant out there called the Chop House. It's like a little steak kind of sit-down, nice restaurant, but you're in right field. And that's a home run target. I've seen a lot of guys hit a ball into the Chop House. So this man hit one onto the roof of the Chop House. You have to go 500 to get to the roof. O'Neal Cruz hit a dong that sailed to the back of the roof of the Chop House. I was watching this on my laptop in a hotel room last night and said out loud, oh my God, that's how hard he hit that baseball last night. All-Star game, of course, tonight in Atlanta, Georgia. Your 3 Braves representatives. Starting in the outfield, Ronald Acuna Jr. Reserve at first base is Matty Ice Ice Baby Olsen, who was in the Derby and got eliminated in the first round last night. And, of course, on reserve, though he will not play, is Chris Sale, who was in a Cy Young form before he fractured 2 ribs, still healing from that. He will be out. Let's wrap it up with item number 3. We're going to talk a little bit about this coming up more in the remainder of the show, but this was a major college football revelation here from SEC Media Days yesterday. SEC Conference Commissioner Greg Sankey at the microphone said that there is a growing chance that the college football playoff stays at 12 teams. He said that he and Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti spoke 4 of 5 days last week and acknowledged that the SEC and the Big Ten are in very different positions in terms of belief of the format of the extension. We have talked about this quite a bit. The Big Ten is pushing for that 4-4-1-1-2 model where the SEC and the Big Ten would each get 4 automatic qualifiers. The SEC and the Big 12 would each get 2 automatic qualifiers. The group of 5 would get 1, and the rest would be determined at large. But Greg Sankey seems to be now saying that the conference will follow the wishes of the college football coaches in that conference and seek a 5+11 model that would give the 5 highest ranked conference champions an automatic qualifier, and the other 11 positions would be the next 11 highest rated teams. And Greg Sankey said yesterday that those 2 conferences needed to get in line are not yet, and that could push college football playoff expansion perhaps back a year, maybe longer. I don't think so, because at the end of the day, they're both going to make a buttload of money if football expands. And we all know at the end of the day, I don't care if you're Greg Sankey or a coach or an AD or a TV exec or anybody else that wears a suit in this world, expansion means more money. And that is the number one driving factor. So is that enough to get Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti back on the same page? We'll find out. We'll talk about it. But when we come back, Gamecock fans, I'm looking for you. What is it? Shane Beamer said yesterday to Paul Feinbaum, we have everything we need to accomplish what we want to accomplish this year, but he never said what that is. So I am going to put you in the shoes of the head ball coach. Gamecock fans, what is it? What do you think is the expectation, the goal to set that you will be able to say at the end of this year, we were successful? We'll talk more about that. We'll play you some sound we picked up yesterday. We'll tell you who we got coming up today. All that on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate live from the SEC Media Days.
Live from SEC Media Days.
I'll keep this next segment real short so we can catch back up. Sorry.
You're listening to a special edition of the Rob
I'm going to run the Sankey Petitti thing, and then that'll be 5 minutes in and out.
Love the savings on the Fan Upstate.
From the News Talk 98.9 WORD Weather Center, here's the Carolinas' most trusted forecast on the Fan Upstate.
The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate live from the College Football Hall of Fame. It is SEC Media Days presented by our friends at Ingles. Low prices, love the savings. We are very grateful to Ingles for helping us out and getting us here. South Carolina fans, I have asked you a very simple question today, and I am looking for your answers. You can text them to the Hub City Spartanburger text line at 844-326-3663, 844-FANFONE. I do have the text line up and running, and I promise I will be a good boy. I will be better today about reading your text and responding. Yesterday, we were kind of finding our way around, learning the ropes a little bit here at the CFPHOF. So today, a little bit back to normal, a little bit more in line with the way the show ordinarily runs. So shoot us a text, 844-326-3663. I have asked you this morning. Shane Beamer said to Paul Feinbaum yesterday, we have everything we need to accomplish all we want to accomplish. And my question for you is, what is that? What is that for you? What is it that South Carolina will need to accomplish this year for you to say, we have accomplished all that we want to accomplish? Is it an 8-win season? Is it a 9-win season? Is it a 10-win season in the face of one of the most difficult back halves to the schedule in recent memory? Is it an appearance in the SEC championship game? Is it an SEC championship victory, knowing that Texas is a national championship front runner, that Georgia is a national championship front runner, that Alabama, who you will play this year in Williams-Brice Stadium, is a championship hopeful, that LSU, who you will play in Baton Rouge, Louisiana this year, is a championship hopeful, knowing the odds are stacked the way that they are stacked for you. What is it that Shane Beamer and the Gamecocks need to accomplish for you to say that we accomplished it? Warren has checked in on the live stream this morning, which you can do as well at facebook.com/thefanupstate, the Fan Upstate on YouTube, the Fan Upstate on Twitter, or the Rob Brown Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. Warren says, given the success that the Gamecocks had last year, Beamer has to make the playoffs. And he put has to make the playoffs in all caps. We got a text just a few minutes ago from Jim. Jim said on the text line, Rob, playoffs are the bottom line, end quote. So a couple of Gamecocks out of the gate saying that the expectation is playoff. And I don't think that is unfair. You're a 10-win team last year, as we have pointed out a number of times, and so has just about everybody else. This is a team that, if either one of the two games that I think we consider the painful losses last year, we are talking about the Alabama game where you had them all but dead to rights in Tuscaloosa, but a couple of mental mistakes late in that game cost you a win. And then the LSU game at home at Willie B last year. That was a game that felt like it was all but won, but a couple of, we'll say, questionable flags down the stretch ended up costing you a win there. Either one of those two L's flipped to a dub, and South Carolina's in the playoffs. Now, you want to take a step forward. We know that. You want to take a step forward every year until you are on the top of the mountain, and then you want to fight your ass off to stay there. That's just how the world works. Well, if one game away from the playoff last year, and if one game away from the playoff with two L's that felt, I want to say, either unnecessary or unjustifiable, kept you there, then the next step in that progression is to make the playoffs. And then the next step in that progression is to win a playoff game. And then the next step in that progression is to win 2 playoff games. So I do not feel like it is necessarily unfair to say that making the playoffs is it. My question is, what do we look at in terms of the conference results? Are you expecting to be in the conference championship? Are you expecting to be a contender in the final week of the season? The more I've thought about this, and I still want your answer, Gamecock fans, 844-326-3663. You can text them or you can call into the radio program. So I think this is where I've landed. I'm going to give you my results, and then I want yours as well. I think where I've landed is this. I would like to see South Carolina as a playoff contender in week 10. I'm not going to say in week 12 or 13 because, again, you do have the Texases, you do have the Georgias. But with Texas playing Georgia in the regular season, with teams like Tennessee, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, LSU, all scattered across the landscape, and all of the front runners for the conference championship, and I think that the two predominant are Georgia and Texas in a rematch. With all of those things on the line, I think there are going to be some losses. I do not think that there will be a 12-0 team in the Southeastern Conference this year. I don't think there's a 12-0 team out there. Texas has got Ohio State and Georgia. Georgia obviously has Texas. They've got Dale Party. Alabama's got LSU, South Carolina. South Carolina's got, Alabama and LSU as well. I don't think there's a 12-0 team in this conference. I think there may be one, maximum 2 11-1 teams in this conference. I think there could be a gaggle of 10-2 teams in this conference. And if South Carolina is in that group, even if there is a 12-0 and an 11-1 and they lock it down, if South Carolina is in that 10-2 group, if South Carolina is in that gaggle of teams that is down the stretch, when I say down the stretch, I mean out of turn 4 and the checkered flags in sight. If they are in that group of teams, that's a good regular season result for me. That's a regular season result I'm happy with. And then I don't think saying make the playoffs is unfair. Now, I also want to keep in mind that when you talk about making the playoffs, it is going to require outpacing a lot of very good teams. Penn State out of the Big Ten, playoff hopeful. Clemson out of the ACC. I don't think playoff hopeful. I think they're getting in as ACC champs, but there is also SMU, who was there last year and wants to get back. The Texas Longhorns, the Georgia Bulldogs, the Ohio State Buckeyes, the LSU Tigers, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the Oregon Ducks, the Alabama Crimson Tide. I'll give you a couple of other teams that I think are kind of, Lonzo, tell me if this is fair, in the same, we want to be in that mix as South Carolina. I think Illinois is in that group this year. I think Arizona State's in that group this year. I think Iowa State's in that group this year. I think Texas Tech is in that group this year. I don't think Kurt Cignetti and his Indiana Hoosiers have plans on going anywhere. Kansas State is in that group this year. The Florida Gators are in that group this year. There's Miami out of the ACC, completely blanked on Miami along with SMU and Clemson. They are in that group this year. Louisville out of the ACC, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, all in the SEC, all in that same gaggle of teams. And I would go one further. I'm going to add one more. You're probably going to disagree. Great one. I think Michigan, despite all of the drama, there is a ton of athletes in the Big House. I think they are going to expect to be competing for that 12th playoff spot this year as well. The point that I'm making here is, I think for Warren to say, given the success the Gamecocks had last year, Beamer has to make the playoffs is fair. I think the expectation of getting in is fair this year, but I also want to point out, and I said this to Colin Diesel, I'll say it to you, Lonzo, we'll get your reaction, we'll take a break. I think the context, if the team misses it, I think the context of how they miss it matters. If they go 10-2, and they're just on the outside looking in, and there's 3 other SEC teams that are 10-2 and they get in, if they ended up with the strength of schedule and they didn't play head-to-head or whatever, I think there may be a point that you look and you go, unfortunately, we're not considered in that upper echelon of nationally recognized college teams, and we've got to earn our way into that spot, and this is part of the lumps you take. I think the context of missing will be important. I think if you're 10-2, you're the first team out, you're number 13, and people, I don't think you're going to come back and say that's a failure. But if you miss and you're 9-3 and there's a bunch of 10-2 teams, then I think you can say that's not what we were going for. The only thing I would caution South Carolina fans is playoff optimism, playoff hopes, absolutely fine. But if you don't make it, look at the context at which you were left out. Don't automatically start banging the drum that Shane failed.
All right. So the thing is, if you're on the bubble again for 2 years in a row, I mean, you've already been there last year. That there were some people upset that South Carolina didn't get in and thought that they should have. You don't want to be there again. The best way to do that is to be in the SEC championship game. You don't have to win it. You just got to be in it. And you're guaranteed to be in there. Who wants to be on the bubble?
I don't disagree.
And I know I'm not sure you think that it's in the realm of possibility. I do. I absolutely do.
I think it's in the realm of possibility, but I do think it is a long shot possibility, right? Like that's a big ask.
Yeah, but 2 years ago you couldn't have said that. So that's how much this team has progressed, that they are in the conversation now. And if you're in the conversation, that means you have the ability to get there.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I wholeheartedly agree. I think that if nothing else, right now, July 15th, 2025, we are 49 whatever days away from the start of the football season. The last day of next month, we're playing college football right here in Atlanta, Georgia. I think on July 15th, before we start really pounding this conversation, I would say to South Carolina fans, take a step back, look at where you were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago. Look at where you are now and see the vast improvement. You are being discussed on the SEC network as a team that could play a role. Was that the case 4 years ago? I don't think so. I would also say it will be important to do at the end of the season the same. If you miss and you're 10-2 and there were 9 at 10-2 teams all on that bubble and you don't get in for whatever reason, maybe you had a bad loss, then I think we can discuss whether the context says it was a success or failure. But Lonzo's also right. Backdoor your way in. Go get 10-2. Go get 11-1. Go get Georgia and Texas to take a dumb loss somewhere. Get yourself into that game, and this is a whole different conversation. When we come back, yesterday got the chance to speak with DQ Smith, senior defensive back for the Gamecocks of South Carolina. I'll play that interview for you next on The Rob Brown Show on the Fan Upstate.
Live from SEC Media Days at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, you're listening to a special edition of the Rob Brown Show, powered by your local English Market. Low prices, love the savings on the Fan Upstate.
I'm Chuck Sanders. Here's
in advance. Okay, sorry, I'll get you when you come back. Not a big deal.
Baseball All-Star Game is tonight in Atlanta. Paul Skeens of the Pirates starts for the National League. Detroit's Terry Skubal starts for the American League. Last night in the home run derby, Major League home run leader Cal Raleigh of the Mariners outlasted Tampa's junior Caminero 18-15 in the final round to win. Raleigh was a one-time Clemson commit. That was back in 2013 when he was a sophomore in high school. Instead, he went to Florida State after Jack Leggett was fired following the 2015 season. Late round draft picks in the baseball draft. South Carolina outfielder Nathan Hall taken in the 5th round by Arizona. Clemson righty Lucas Malstedt in the 7th round by the Angels. Coastal Carolina righty Riley Eichhoff to the White Sox in the 9th round. ACC Pitcher of the Year Jake Knapp of the Tar Heels selected in the 8th round by the Cubs. UNC Charlotte pitcher in the 9th round. Upstate and listen anywhere in your phone. Chuck Sanders, the Sports Flash on the Fan Upstate.
Minute upstate traffic. As expected, both north and southbound I-85 is slowing down now.
Tiger Stripes Media, what's up, big dog? Good to see you,
No
Brian.
major
Thanks for
delays
swinging
right
by. We'll be
now,
right back,
but you
guys.
will
Don't go
be
anywhere.
Posted speeds between Highway 40.
Get to the best local sports. The Fan. 97.7 FM Greenville, 97.1 FM Spartanburg. Always streaming wherever you are on the Odyssey app. The Fan.
Upstate.
Now, back to SEC Media Days in Atlanta and a special edition of The Rob Brown Show, powered by your local Ingles Market. Low prices, love the savings on The Fan Upstate.
Yesterday, I got the opportunity to sit down with a couple of South Carolina Gamecocks. One of them was senior defensive back DQ Smith, and I'm going to tell you, I absolutely loved this interview. He was a fantastic discussion, gave us a lot in terms of the mentality of the defense, his thoughts on Shane Beamer, and we had a little fun too. Here is my interview yesterday with South Carolina Gamecock senior defensive back DQ Smith. Well, that wasn't supposed to stop right there. Let me reload that great one here. Give me just a second.
Always team that's not weak, so you're not putting especially with them. No, you guys don't feel about this defense. You know, you have some guys that are putting more coming up to them. Some tournaments as far as from last year going to the bowl game. Now you guys are playing, but we're going to do the fall. Talk to me a little bit about the bonding as a unit, and especially the new guys that are stepping into the shoes. That's out. It's self-tape too, but they're more of those guys that are not coming to the ring. So just all the great work that we had from different schools, from different cultures. Especially when you are expected to be you're specifically of defense. That's how it's been. Especially coming at the top of it. Team goes
There you go. There was our interview with DQ Smith. I apologize, the audio being a little off there, but I will tell you that later on today, in fact, shortly after the show, I will have that full interview posted. So for those of you that maybe didn't get the best quality, I will have better quality audio of that interview posted for you on our social media channels at The Fan Upstate, at The Fan Upstate. That will be posted shortly after the conclusion of the show, as will the interview we did with Nick Barrett, defensive tackle for the South Carolina Gamecocks, and Jay Busby of Yahoo Sports, all in on the show yesterday. Coming up later on this afternoon after the show, Peter Burns of the SEC Network is going to stop by. David Nuno of Aggies Live, the rivals site for the Texas A&M Aggies. He has been covering SEC football for longer than I have been in the game at this point. Dear friend of mine in the business, David Nuno, will stop by, and I will let you know what other interviews we acquire throughout the course of the day, which we will post on our social media channels and also have some of them for you later on in the final hour of the show. As of now, Abe Gordon of 92.9 The Game in Atlanta will be swinging by to talk with us live sometime in the 9 o'clock hour as well. All of that coming up over the next few days as we are live at the College Football Hall of Fame for Southeastern Conference Media Days. Day numero dos underway as the upstairs area is starting to fill up. We will have the SEC's chief of officials coming up here in about half an hour. We'll hear what he has to say. We've got Georgia and Auburn in our morning session, so we'll hear from Hugh Freeze and Kirby Smart. You know who we're going to hear from right now? Ladies and gentlemen, the best sports flash in the world belongs to Lonzo.
Up to the minute upstate traffic. Several stretches of moderate delays along the I-85 corridor between Greenville and Spartanburg, southbound from before Highway 14 and northbound from I-385. The northbound side is also sluggish between 185 and 276. The 385 ramp to northbound 85 is also closed. Wade Hampton and Whitehorse are both wide open and running good. From the News Talk 98.9 WORD Traffic Center, I'm Bill Brooks on The Fan Upstate.
Member Week is here at Lowe's. Don't miss your chance to get up to 40% off hundreds of items like paint, tools, home essentials, and more. Shop our exclusive deals happening in-store and online now through July 18th. Not a rewards member? Join for free today and get ready to save more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Ugh. Kitchen ants, runaway roaches, a spider. Relax. Just use Zevo. Zevo insect killer sprays use a powerful blend of mint and rosemary to eliminate those pests and up to 20 other bug types. Plus, Zevo is safe for use around people and pets when used as directed. Just spray the
Yeah, I
bug
probably should turn that on, shouldn't I?
and wipe
Thanks,
them away. Zevo, people friendly, bug deadly.
I'd turn off so I wouldn't be making noise during what we were playing. But, you know.
History with Ingles Markets. On March 3rd, 1863, the Enrollment Act was passed in relation to the Civil War. A part of the act.
Let's talk about Rob's majestic-looking chair and the fact that he is on the second floor, and you can see down in there to the first floor where the coaches and everyone speak the podium. I mean, you know, took the chair out of there. That could be an awesome screensaver.
In response, they burned the draft office and riots broke out for a week. Local newspapers, wealthy homes, police officers, and even well-dressed men were targeted. The riots took an even more serious turn as African Americans were.
That's not good. I probably should take that off because who knows what they're saying on there.
By Union troops, many coming directly from the Battle of Gettysburg. More than 1,000 people died, and property damage was estimated at over $2 million. Due to the riots, very few New Yorkers were forced to serve in the Union Army.
Okay, so you're actually hearing the commercials.
Do you have 3 ex-wives in your current?
I'll take it off.
Live from the College Football Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, Georgia, it is the Rob Brown Show live at SEC Media Days, presented by our friends at Ingles. Love the savings. Fantastic, fantastic sponsor, and we are glad to have them with us here on the show and here at SEC Media Days. Taking you all the way through Thursday, the final day of SEC Media Days. We will be live today, tomorrow, and Thursday. And looking forward to hearing whatever we're going to be hearing over the next few days. The interesting conversation that broke out yesterday was from Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the Southeastern Conference. We have talked a little bit about some of the things that he said yesterday at the commissioners' round table to open up SEC Media Days. I will start with this. The big thing that got discussed yesterday was the expansion of the college football playoff. Now, there were some other things that caught people's attention. One of those things was that Greg Sankey repeatedly referred to the Southeastern Conference as, and I am directly quoting here, great one, a super conference. He himself used the term super conference yesterday and did so a number of times, which, yeah. So the interesting aspect about that is that the term super conference has, to me anyway, has almost kind of picked up a secondary meaning. Super conference in terms of size, sure, it's got 16 teams in it. It's a big-ass conference. We all know that. But the term super conference has been, I think, majoritively used by people discussing the future of college football and the belief in the future of college football being the SEC and the Big Ten playing on one level, and then everybody else playing on a different level. Now, whether that level is alongside the Big Ten and the SEC, and they pick up whatever table scraps those two conferences leave behind for everybody else, whatever is left of the ACC, whatever is left of the Big 12, whatever is left of everybody else. Or there is the more extreme discussion, which is we end up inevitably with two levels of college football. We end up with a major college football that is the Big Ten and the SEC, and the remaining teams out there, Florida State, Clemson, et cetera, Notre Dame, those schools are not going to be left out in the cold. There's obviously way too much money wrapped up in those schools to not have them be a part of, if it does become two separate levels, the highest level of college football. It will be everybody else, the San Diego States, the Boise States of the world, that get left behind in the second level. But the fact that Greg Sankey utilized the term super conference yesterday got a lot of people talking. The fact that we had the term super conference used by a super conference commissioner has a lot of people asking, are Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, the two commissioners of the SEC and the Big Ten, are they starting to get the vibe or maybe acknowledge publicly that they really do hold the future of college football in whatever shape and form it is ultimately going to take long term? They actually hold that power and the fate of college football in their hands. And we'll come back to that discussion here in a few minutes, because I do think there's a lot of hypotheticals in that discussion. I do think that there are a lot of unknowns in that discussion. I think there are a lot of variables in those discussions and a lot of things that we just may not even be able to hypotheticalize until those discussions start to come to fruition. Now, I am sure that Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey and Rich Clark and Charlie Baker and the big name authority figures in college football, I'm sure they all have a better idea of the long-term direction that we are heading in right now. And that is why little things like Greg Sankey using the term super conference do catch people's attention, right? It's like any time that you hear a high-level politician speak or a CEO of a Fortune 500 company speak. Any time that they use terminology that is outside of the fan-level discussion of that thing or the investor-level discussion of that thing, any time that they use terminology that is not in the common vernacular of whatever the thing is that we are talking about, it grabs people's attention. It catches people's attention because you start to wonder, what are the discussions going on behind the scenes? Now, I'm going to segue that into what ended up being one of the more attention-grabbing statements of Greg Sankey yesterday. Greg Sankey yesterday during the Conference Commissioners Roundtable early in the day here at SEC Media Days, Greg Sankey in his keynote address said something to the tune of, the Big Ten and the Southeastern Conference are not on the same page in regards to college football playoff expansion. Now, I think we kind of knew that already, right? Like, we kind of knew that already. We kind of knew already that the SEC coaches during the SEC spring meetings a few weeks ago down in Destin, Florida, said that they are leaning towards the preference of a 5+11 model. The 5 highest ranked conference champions, then joined by the next 11 highest ranked teams as determined by the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. The Big Ten has not joined the Southeastern Conference in that stance. The Big Ten prefers the model that was initially brought forward. That initial model is the 4-4-2-2-1-1-2 model, and that is the 4 automatic qualifiers to the Big Ten, 4 automatic qualifiers to the Southeastern Conference, 2 automatic qualifiers to the Atlantic Coast Conference, 2 automatic qualifiers to the Big 12, 1 automatic qualifier for the group of 5, and then some at-large bids to round out the 16 when we expand. That in and of itself is not new. We know that the SEC, at least the coaches, and Greg Sankey is saying that the conference, because of that, prefers the 5+11. We knew that the Big Ten, who we have not really heard any coaches speak out on this issue yet, the Big Ten prefers the more automatic qualifiers for conferences model. Nothing new. Nothing's changed. We know that. What is new, and what did cause a bit of a ruckus yesterday, was when Greg Sankey said that because of the fact that these two conferences are in different places, because of the fact that these two conferences are not aligned on this issue, there is now the thought that it may actually push conference expansion off the table for now. Keep in mind, the College Football Committee has to approve expansion sometime around December 1st. I believe, if I recall correctly, December 1st is the last day for expansion to be approved for next season. And so the thought is that we were moving towards that vote, and that it to some degree almost felt like it was in inevitability when it was all said and done. It felt like it was more of a definite, more of a mandate that was going to happen. Greg Sankey said yesterday, may not. It may not. If the two conferences, which, as we have said, what is the golden rule? You, young lads and lasses out there, have been taught your entire childhood that the golden rule is treat others as you wish to be treated. And that is a good rule for life. Let cynical Uncle Rob roll it back for just a minute. That is a good rule for life. You should follow the golden rule. You should treat others the way that you wish to be treated. That is a wonderful philosophy under which to live your life. However, it is not the golden rule. The golden rule is very simple. My old man taught me this when I was just a ute, because my old man wanted to see the world for what it is and what we can make it, not the ideal sunshine, butterflies, and rainbows version of it. The real golden rule is he who has the gold makes the rules. Now, I could go off on a deep philosophical rant about where we are in America, but I won't do that. I'll stick it to college football here for just a minute for the betterment of Lonzo's mental health and well-being. In college football, we know who has the gold. There are 3 entities which have the gold. Entity number 1 is the Southeastern Conference. Entity number 2 is the Big Ten Conference. And entity number 3 are their television partners, ESPN and Fox Sports. Greg Sankey saying yesterday that the possibility of college football playoffs not expanding next year, if the Big Ten and Southeastern Conference cannot get on the same page, I'm going to say respectfully to the commish, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I would like for it to be true. Not because I'm anti-expansion. I'm not. In fact, quite the opposite. I'm pro-expansion. I think 16 teams is the right number. A lot of people think that's too many teams. I think it's the right number. I think having 16 allows you to ensure that, number one, every team that is a legitimate national championship team is for sure in. Now, I'm not saying that there was, or ever will be a year where we genuinely feel like there are a dozen college football teams, any of which could win the national championship. What I will say is that wild card teams win the Super Bowl every now and then. Wild card teams win the World Series every now and then. And while those are professional sports and it is played at a different level,
technically Ohio State was a wild card team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, granted, you weren't ranked number 11 at the end of the year, but technically speaking, you are correct. So the point here for me is I would rather have too many teams and a couple of teams that make the mix and we all go, yeah, that's not a national championship contender. Then have years like we did back in the BCS days where we don't have enough teams and we feel like there's a lot of teams on the outside looking in. A team like Florida State from 2023 that win the Atlantic Coast Conference, go 13-0, win the conference championship game, and then get left out because there weren't spots. Would they have won the national championship? Realistically, probably not. Even I'm willing to acknowledge that, even though I absolutely think they should have been in over Alabama that year. I also have subscribed. Somebody hand me the tin foil. I need to make a cap. That the reason Florida State was left out of the playoffs was not because Jordan Travis's legs snapped like a pretzel. The reason that Florida State missed the playoffs was because had Florida State gone to the playoffs, there would have been no SEC team in there. And the powers that be couldn't have that. So they made sure they got their spot. Am I mad at them for it? No, I understand. At the end of the day, I have accepted, as I encourage the rest of you to do, that college football is every bit the business the National Football League is. It is driven by the dollar bills, y'all, and not a damn thing else. That is why I do not believe Greg Sankey. When Greg Sankey says that we may not expand next year because the two conferences that hold the gold and therefore make the rules can't get on the same page. I don't believe him. And the reason I don't believe him is whether he and Petitti want it or not. The biggest player in all of this is without a doubt the television networks. They have the gold, they make the rules, and if you were to say, we can give you 4 more teams, and by giving you 4 more teams, give you additional games in the opening round, additional games in the college football playoffs as a whole, those TV networks are not going to say no to that. In fact, quite the opposite. They are going to push for it to happen. They are going to push for that expansion to happen. And if they are going to push for that expansion to happen, even Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti can't say no to that. So the only question at this point is going to be, when is that vote? Is it December 1st because we have negotiations on negotiations on negotiations? Or is it earlier than that because ESPN and Fox and CW and all these other television networks that are involved make the call to the commissions and they go, hey, we don't particularly know or particularly care why you guys can't get on the same page, but get on the same page. Get it together. When I was growing up, I have a little brother. He is 3 years younger than I. And when we were cheering back in the day, if the little brother and I got into a fight because he was hogging the Nintendo or I took the last of the Chips Ahoy or whatever, if we got into a fight and we were incapable of coming to a solution to said conflict ourselves, do you know what Mama Brown used to do? Mama Brown would grab us both by the scruff of the neck, metaphorically speaking. She was a gentle and caring woman. And she would walk us down the hallway and she would put us into the boring room, Dad's office, their bedroom, whatever. She would put us in the boring room where there was nothing to do and nothing to distract us. And she would close the door and she said, you may come out when you are friends again. You may come out when you are on the same page. You may come out when you have reached a compromise or a solution to the problem that you are having. And we would have to sit in there for 5 minutes or 5 hours or the whole day figuring out what we were going to do to both be happy. The networks are going to do that to the Big Ten and the SEC. They're going to say, we don't care if you go 5+11, if you go 4-4-2-2-1-1-1. We don't care what system you decide that you're going to go with. We don't care what the format is. We don't care about any of it. We want our 4 more teams. We want our 2 more games. We want our expanded playoffs. We want our extra week of playoff football. We want it. And you are all going to sit in the boring room together and you're going to talk and negotiate until you come to a compromise. And then you're going to, because you two conferences have the power to tell everybody else what they're going to do. You two conferences are going to sit compromise, find out what's best for both of you. Then you're going to come out of the room. You're going to tell everybody else what it is, and we're going to do that, and we're going to get our football, and you're going to get your lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of money for doing so. I know Greg Sankey caught a bunch of attention yesterday for saying that we might not expand next year because of this. I am telling you, they absolutely are. There's not a doubt in my mind because there's too much money not to. Now, which of those formats is best for the SEC? Which of those formats is best for the Big Ten? Which is best for everybody else? Greg McElroy had some comments I heard him talk about yesterday, and I want to address them next. Rob Lonzo and you, live from the College Football Hall of Fame. It's SEC Media Days presented by Ingles here on the Fan Upstate.
3 friends.
10-4. The Rob Brown Show back on your radio. It is the Fan Upstate live from the College Football Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, Georgia for day number 2 of 4 at SEC Media Days. Kevin texts the show, or excuse me, joined us on the live stream. And you can too, facebook.com/thefanupstate, the Fan Upstate on Twitter, the Fan Upstate on YouTube, or the Rob Brown Show on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. We are live all 4 hours. And now that we got the bugs worked out, we're going to be live today, tomorrow, and on Thursday for the final day of SEC Media Days. And I'll give you another little secret. Coming up after the show, probably around 11:30 or noon. Actually, I'm going to say closer to noon. So right around noon, I'm going to go live again. And I'm going to go live from my phone, and I'm going to take you guys on a tour of the College Football Hall of Fame here in Atlanta. Now, I will tell you that it is closed off to the public for these 4 days for SEC Media Days. So a lot of the exhibits are, the interactive ones are not on and working, which is just too bad for me and my quads, because I'm not going to get to do the vertical jump, the 40-yard dash, etc. But I will still be able to take you around, show you some of the stuff. I was sending Zoe pictures yesterday. On the other side, they have one of Ohio State's tuba player outfits, along with the tuba that has dotted the I at Ohio Stadium before. They have an entire exhibit dedicated just to the cheerleaders of college football. It's beyond impressive. The only thing I'm genuinely upset about this experience is the fact that while it's awesome that I get to come see all the exhibits, it's closed to the public, and none of the stuff is actually running. They have on the other side of me, Zoe, and I was really looking forward to this until I found out that it's not up and running. They have a mock-up of the College Game Day desk, and you can sit behind the desk and you push a button, and it puts you in a College Game Day broadcast. So you sit behind this desk, and it gives you a script to set up a segment, and then it runs a little thing, and you actually host College Game Day for a segment, and then it emails you the file of you hosting Game Day. I was going to go full Pat McAfee turned to 11 on that thing, but I walked over there yesterday, and they don't have it turned on. And it disappointed me more than anything else.
I was going to ask you which seat you would be sitting in if you were, so if you're cosplaying one of the guys on College Game Day.
I think I'm off center right. I don't want to sit in the middle, right? Like that's Fowler's seat. I don't want to sit in the middle. I think I'm off center right because you go Chris in the middle, then you go Pat, then you go Nick to the right.
It's not Fowler, it's Reese Davis.
I mean Reese Davis. Sorry, not Fowler.
Basically the same guy. So,
yeah.
I mean,
I think I would sit. I think it's that looking at the stage. I think I'd sit off center right would be the play, and just absolutely open up the throttle full. We'll see. I very much considered.
So
seeing
sitting where Saban sits.
Yeah, I'd probably sit in that chair. I very much considered paying my own way to stay one more night here in Atlanta and just come here on Friday, like when it's back open to the public, just to experience it as a as a college football fan and not a dude who works in the industry, but, alas, duty calls. We'll see. All right. Kevin said, nothing as exciting as Media Days. When can we look forward to the Southern Conference Media Days? That's a crowd pleaser faux show. And the answer is, Kevin, as soon as I get the dates, because that, I believe, is being hosted in Greenville again this year. We will, as we have covered the Southern Conference Media Days the last couple of years, do the same again this year. I look forward to that. So I want to finish up the conversation we were having in the last segment of the show. Greg Sankey made some waves yesterday here at SEC Media Days when he said that college football's playoffs may not expand as anticipated in 2026 because he and Tony Petitti, the two conferences that have all the gold and therefore make all the rules, the Big Ten and the SEC, aren't and can't get on the same page in regards to the format. The SEC, we told you back during spring meetings, the coaches were very open about wanting the 5+11 model, whereas the Big Ten has been very open about wanting the model that gives more automatic qualifiers. So yesterday afternoon, I was sitting here doing some afternoon work, waiting for the afternoon session with Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss Rebels and Clark Lee and the Vanderbilt Commodores. And there's a couple of gentlemen sitting over here from Mississippi. They were having an interview with Greg McElroy, and they asked him about his preference. And McElroy had a couple of arguments why he believes the opposite of the SEC coaches. He said he believes the correct model for college football playoff expansion would not be the multi-AQ for the big conferences model. He actually said, the 5+11 model is suggested by the SEC coaches. He actually said the correct model, in his opinion, would be the 4-4-2-2 model. And when asked why he believed that, he gave a couple of reasons. The first reason that he gave that he believes the 4-4-2-2 plus model, the first reason that he gave is he just said there is clearly more talent concentrated in those conferences. Those two conferences cannibalize each other, and therefore they should be rewarded for producing more talent across more teams. They should be rewarded by having more automatic spots in the playoff. The second reason that Greg McElroy said that he believes that the more AQs for the power conferences model is the correct model is he said he thinks it's easier for the fans to understand. Now, I, respectfully to Greg McElroy, who I did talk to for 4 or 5 minutes yesterday, super nice guy, all the respect in the world. I like Greg McElroy a lot. I think Greg McElroy does a great job. I felt a little bit disrespected by that take. And I heard him, and again, he was in an interview, so I couldn't address it if I get the chance to speak to him today, because there is still the outside chance. Right now we have confirmed over the next 2 days Peter Burns from the SEC Network, Benjamin Watson from the SEC Network, and we are working on one more name, hopefully get Laura Rutledge in here on Thursday. I'll let you know. That one's kind of in flux right now. But if I get the chance to talk to Greg, there is a chance he might show up. I really do want to ask him about that, because the first argument he said, I get it. I understand it. And for somebody who works for the SEC Network, that makes perfect sense. If I was this is why when the 5+11 conversation came up a couple of weeks ago at the SEC spring meetings, and it was announced that the SEC coaches liked 5+11, I was genuinely shocked by that. If you were listening to the show that day, you may remember. I was genuinely shocked by that, because I said I cannot imagine a world in which SEC coaches would say, we want to risk being team number 13 at 10-2 and not getting in. When being 10-2 in the top 4 in the SEC, and you're only competing to be one of the top 4 SEC teams, would buy you a spot. I was genuinely a little bit taken aback by that. I was not shocked that the Big Ten wants the 4-4 plus model. That makes more sense for that conference. And so therefore, and I say this respectfully, somebody like Greg McElroy, who works for the SEC, or the SEC Network in this case, somebody like Greg McElroy, who his well-being is determined by the success and the failure of the Southeastern Conference, it makes sense to me that he would want a model that guarantees the SEC would get 4 teams, and not a model that doesn't guarantee anything, not a model that guarantees you get 1, and there never will be, let's be real clear about this, but that guarantees you would get 4 instead of a foundation, a format that guarantees you get 1 and nothing more than that. I didn't understand the take of, well, that'll be easier for the fans to understand. How is it hard to understand 5 conference champs in the next 11 ranked teams? The only thing I can say is, I guess Greg is making the argument that we would be having, and I think this is true, we would shift the fights we used to have about who's number 2 and 3 and deserves to go, who's number 4 and 5 and deserves to go and deserves to get left out, to who's number 16 and 17 that deserves to get left out. But I'd rather fight that. And as Shane just asked the question, in the 4-4-2-2 model, are those bigger conferences still eligible for at-large teams outside their AQ? Yes. Yes, they are. If we went 4-4-2-2 and those 2 at-larges, if one of those was an SEC team and a Big Ten team, they would both get 5 teams in. But that's why I expect somebody from the SEC to say they like that model, or somebody from the Big Ten to say they like the model. That's why I was shocked the SEC coaches said 5+11. which is the plan I prefer personally. Where do you land on this? 844-326-3663. We will hear some sound from Lenoris Sellers when we come back on the Rob Brown Show in the Fan Upstate.
From SEC Media Days at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. You're listening
Be right back, guys. Stay right there, please, and thank you.
Powered by your local
We'll see.
We will see. All right, I think we're good. Hold them tight because we're going to try some sound here. As the great Samuel L. Jackson once said, hang on to your butts.
And a special edition of the Rob Brown Show, powered by your local Ingles Market. Low prices, love the savings on the Fan Upstate.
We are live at SEC Media Days here in Atlanta, Georgia, the College Football Hall of Fame. Our gracious host this beautiful day. I will let you know that we have got some sound coming up from yesterday. We have got some sound coming up from today. We will be sitting down with Peter Burns of the SEC Network later on today. We will be sitting down with David Nuno from Aggies Live, the rival site of the Texas A&M Aggies. He's been covering SEC football for longer than I have been in radio as a whole. One of my favorite people to talk to. We'll get David Nuno in here later on, and I will be hustling down some other interviews over the course of the day. Now, yesterday, I did not get, unfortunately, the opportunity to sit down with LaNorris Sellers and Shane Beamer. And a big part of the reason for that was these two dudes were absolute rock stars in this building yesterday. When I tell you that the expectations for the South Carolina Gamecocks are elevated this year, I do not mean just for South Carolina fans. I mean, they are elevated in the eyes of the national media, in the eyes of broadcasters here, I think in the eyes of fans everywhere. Yesterday, I started making the rounds after the show was over. And I went on, I think, 3 or 4 different shows and podcasts yesterday to talk South Carolina Gamecock football. And all of the podcasts that I went on, obviously aside from talking about LaNorris Sellers extensively, all of them, when I asked them, because there's not much I love more than being interviewed on somebody's show and asking them questions instead, I asked everybody whose show I was on yesterday, what are your expectations as a Oklahoma fan, as a Texas fan, as an Aggies fan? What are your expectations for the football team I covered this year? And all of them said some form of elevated. LaNorris Sellers is a big part of that reason why. We have said a couple of times already that LaNorris Sellers is on the national stage. This is part of the reason that I said, I think the reason that anything less than a playoff berth, even if contextually speaking, a playoff berth is impressive, a playoff berth is a win for South Carolina, even if you don't make it in, if contextually we get to the end of the year, you're team 13, you don't get in and you look and you go, yeah, that sucks, but we fully understand why. Not through any fault of our own, right? We won all the games we were supposed to win. Maybe you drop one to a Georgia and Alabama, whatever. Contextually, it matters. But I've also said a couple of times that as goes LaNorris, go the Gamecocks. And the reason that is interesting is because this feels like the year that you have your Cam Newton, you have your Tim Tebow, you have your guy, like that guy that Gamecock fans are going to talk about for years to come. Elevated the team last year in his first year as QB1, and now the expectations this year going into this year are to get back to that level. So yesterday, LaNorris Sellers was doing a car wash, and I pulled some sound from some different sources. Here is one where he talks about being a leader. Here is one where he talks about elevating his chemistry with some of his young receivers and a couple of other fun bites too. So there's LaNorris Sellers talking about building chemistry with the young team. I did talk with 2 defensive players yesterday, DQ Smith and Nick Barrett. And when I asked those 2 guys about LaNorris Sellers, when I asked about his leadership style, when I asked him about how he has taken over as the voice of this football team, they both said the same thing. They said, it's not about LaNorris Sellers talking, although he does. And he talks well, and he's a great leader vocally. Said it's not just about LaNorris Sellers in his ability to lead vocally. It's also about his actions. They said yesterday that he was phenomenal as far as getting on the field and doing it. He's not going to go out there and ask everybody else to hustle and grind and be the best if he's not out there busting it too. He was also on the SEC Network yesterday, and they asked him about the Heisman hopes. There are discussions about him being a Heisman Trophy winner. I've already told you, I have a ticket out on 2 quarterbacks to both attend as a parlay and to win the Heisman individually. And these are Cade Klubnik at Clemson and Lenora Sellers at South Carolina. He was asked about that on the SEC Network yesterday. So there's Lenora Sellers talking about the Heisman hopes and the potential to win a Heisman title. And he said, I'm not shying away from it, right? She said, hey, how do you feel about the fact that Gamecock fans are introducing the Heisman into the conversation? And he said, hey, I appreciate it. It's exciting. I'm glad it's happening. I'm glad that I'm in that discussion. I'm not backing away from it. Most of what he said in that clip to me, Lonzo, was pretty standard stuff for a quarterback, a starting quarterback, even one with the hype of Lenora Sellers. It's still mostly stuff you're going to hear from a quarterback. It's about leading, and we want to be on the same page and holding each other accountable. I mean, if I had the cliche buzzer available, I'd have been slapping at every other answer. But what I did love about that clip was the opening, because it shows that he does have ambition, drive, goals, whatever. A lot of quarterbacks, when told, hey, your fans are starting a Heisman campaign and you're being talked about as a favorite and you're this and you're that, how do you feel about it? I think a lot of guys, if they went with the cliche answer, would say, oh, I'm not worried about personal accomplishments, personal achievements. I'm not worried about doing anything for me. I'm doing it for the team. And that would have been a fine answer. This young man said, I'm embracing it. I'm excited about it. I'd love to make that happen. And in a weird way, great one, I really do appreciate that, because I want my guy driven to accomplish great things for himself and have the team benefit from that.
Well, the majority of these guys, when they go to this, they're schooled before they show up. They go through practice sessions, things like that. Hey, don't you get goaded into this. Don't you say this thing. But in his answers, you can hear him in there. You could definitely hear him and his excitement and his confidence. And I really have enjoyed his answers, because, like I said, it's not all saying what the coach told you to say. Yeah. There's a little bit in there of him, and it just makes me more hyped for the season.
I agree. And the one thing that I can say above all else, like I said, this kid was a rock star yesterday. Every time he walked around the building up here on Digital Drive, a.k.a. Radio Row, he had a gaggle of people following him. He had a big staff from South Carolina that was following him. But he had reporters and broadcasters and media members at every level, from the ESPN folks all the way down to the little local yokel stations and hosts like me. They were following this kid around, just trying to get something. And to have that much pressure heaped on this guy when he is taken over as QB1, not taken over, he was QB1 last year, but stepping up from QB1 to guy who was expected to potentially go as high as a Heisman Trophy finalist / winner. He's working the media well. That's not even what I'm concerned about. What I will say about him working the media well is it feels genuine. It feels authentic. I sat down with, and I say this with no disrespect at all, I sat down with DQ Smith yesterday. I played you that audio earlier in the show. I'll upload it later on today when I get a few minutes. I sat down with DQ yesterday, and the first couple of answers were very team speak. I do what I like to do, which is try to get these guys kind of to speak personally, like less about, oh, I'm here as a Gamecock, and more like I'm DQ Smith, the dude. And once I got him loosened up, he was a lot of fun. Nick Barrett never came off the media coaching, right? Like, no matter how personal I tried to be, he was like, he's business, he's business, he's business. And I respect that. I understand it. Some guys have to have that it's business and it's nothing but business and it's always business mentality to be the best. I respect the hell out of that. When Lenore Sellers was talking yesterday, whether it was in the big Q&A in the press conference to the individual outlets he was interviewed by yesterday, it felt very genuine. There was not coach speak. There was not media speak. There was a lot of the QB cliches for sure, but when he got asked about the Heisman hype, when he got asked about the fans calling him La Heisman, when he got asked about being in New York, there was no cliche there. He's like, I'm excited about it. I want it to happen. I know it says I've accomplished big things, and it means I'm going to take my team with me. I appreciated hearing that. All right, coming up in the next hour of the show, we're going to do one segment away from college football. I want to talk a little bit about the MLB Home Run Derby, the All-Star Game, and the story developing in NASCAR right now. We'll knock those out. We'll get you some more sound from yesterday, including from Greg Sankey, and we'll talk a lot more college football live from the College Football Hall of Fame here for day 2 of 4 at SEC Media Days, presented by our friends at Ingles, now presented by me, because I want to take full credit for how incredible you're going to feel in 60 seconds. It's Lonzo Sports Flash.
I give you the credit for this. Your 2025 Home Run Derby champion is Seattle's Cal, the Big Dumper, Raleigh. Raleigh faced Tampa's Junior Caminero in the final, hitting 18 to Caminero's 15 in the last round. Raleigh becomes just the second Mariner to win the event behind Ken Griffey Jr., who won the event twice. The New York Jets have signed wide receiver Garrett Wilson to a 4-year, $130 million contract to stay with the team, including $90 million guaranteed. The contract marks the first time a wide receiver has been paid more than $31 million after just 3 seasons in the league. And the Philadelphia 76ers star Paul George has undergone arthroscopic knee surgery, according to sources. The surgery was in response to an injury suffered in practice and follows a season in which George played only 41 games due to a string of injuries.
Up to the minute, upstate traffic. Things haven't changed much since we last talked. Several stretches of moderate delays along the I-85 corridor between Greenville and Spartanburg, southbound from before Highway 14 and northbound from
All right, because of what I understand, the extra noise that comes from Rob probably leaving his microphone. Let's take a check. Yeah, he left it on. So I'm going to take us to the thing until we get back in a couple minutes. Hang on.
Odyssey Sports Station.
Man, check this out.
You're on official Rob Brown lockdown.
Represents being real. Yeah.
Unfiltered sports talk. Manufactured locally for the Carolinas.
Lockdown.
This is the Rob Brown Show.
Get robbed.
Only
The Fan upstairs.
Can you dig it?
And off we go, ladies and gentlemen, just like that. The final hour of the Rob Brown Show starts now. Live from the College Football Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, Georgia. It is day 2 of 4 of SEC Media Days. We are here thanks to our friends at Ingles Supermarkets, kind enough to give us a whole bunch of money so that we could justify coming over here and goofing off and calling it a real job. Yes, indeed, they are. And this event is. And you know what else is wonderful? It is wonderful when you get to share some airtime with a dear friend, with a compatriot, with a colleague, with an amigo, with somebody that I've got to call a direct coworker many moons ago down in Destin, Florida. And now he is a host on 92.9 The Game right here. He runs every sports scene in the ATL. My dear friend Abe Gordon taking a few minutes. What's up, big fella?
Oh, not much, man. It's great to see you. Happy you guys are down here. That's awesome. And it's been a wild week. And today is, in my opinion, is the biggest day. Again, locally here in Atlanta, obviously the Georgia factor. As many are terming it with respect to the Missouri Valley Conference, of course. Arch Madness today, Arch Manning in Texas speaking. I think this is the big central day of the SEC. I know Sankey spoke yesterday and got some stuff, but today's a big one, man.
Today's a big one. Yesterday was interesting. You had Greg Sankey, and I did want to ask you a little bit about some of that, and then I want to transition over to the Georgia Bulldogs here in a minute. You and I had a conversation about them on my national show on Saturday. We're going to bring it over here, but let's start with yesterday. And the news that kind of made the waves from Greg Sankey was that he openly acknowledged two things. Number one, he called the SEC a super conference, which I think is the first time he's used that term.
Yeah.
And then he talked about the fact that maybe college expansion isn't going to happen next year because of a dispute with the Big Ten. I want to start with the super conference comments because I don't know if this is hot takey or not. And if there's one dude in this building who's going to say, Rob Brown, shut up, that's a hot take, it's you. What I find interesting is that over the past couple of months, maybe years, the term super conference has kind of almost gained like a secondary meaning, or we use it a little bit differently, right? Like I think Greg Sankey just meant we got 16 teams. We're a big ass conference now. But I also think that for a lot of us as fans, we have listened the last couple of years, and the term super conference has effectively gone to describe there's the haves and the have-nots. We know the SEC and the Big Ten are. We know he who has the gold makes the rules. We know they got all the gold. That was the first time in hearing him use that yesterday that it felt to me like there was, and this is where it maybe gets hot takey, almost an acknowledgement from Greg Sankey that we run the show. Y'all know we run the show. Now we just got to figure out between us and the Big Ten how the show's going to go.
Well, there's two things that work in my mind here. And I think when you talk about the super conference terminology as Greg Sankey used it, he's talking about all sports. I think you look at the SEC, he's using super conference, not just for football. Look what we did in basketball, championship. Look what we did in baseball, championship. Look what we do in track and field, gymnastics, tennis, cross country. Well, they're not great in cross country. It's an ACC sport. But I think you understand where I'm headed with this. I think it's so much more than just a football comment from Sankey to call the SEC a super conference because it encapsulates the ability of the SEC to outperform not just in one sport, in pretty much any sport they want to take on. I think when you look at it in relation to just college football, there's been a suggestion that, hey, no, and a lot of it has to do with the realignment that we've seen in the past 5-6 years. There is no more Power 5. There's really not a Power 4. You can argue if the ACC is even part of a Power 3. It's a Power 2. Now, if you have a Power 2, are you going to continually grow and you're going to make two conferences of 20 or 28 teams and get to 40 or 48 or 56 and kind of just dual super conference thing? I think it's the funniest suggestion in the world, and it's been going on for a while. And here's what happens if you continually grow these conferences. Let's just use the number 20, right? Big Ten and SEC, they're not that far from 20. All right, so you get 20 teams in each conference. What do you then do? You split them into an Eastern and a Western, or a Northern and a Southern, and you have divisions. And you go right back to that, and they don't play each other until a championship game, and all that. What does that sound like? It sounds like what we just came from with conferences. It's the exact same thing we just left. You're just changing the names around. So I just find it hilarious that that's like this big, here's where we're trending. Like, time is a flat circle, man. We're trending right back to the thing we just had. Maybe it's controlled by fewer people, and I think that's obviously what the significant portion of it is. But, like, if you have 20 teams and you just split them into East-West and they just play each other, that's the SEC and the ACC, the Big Ten and the Big 12. Like, it's still just conferences.
It's similar to me. The comparison I made is watching over the last couple of years what's happened in TV, right? Like, we all started cord cutting because we started getting these streaming services, and it's got to the point now where there are so many streaming services. And Rob Manfred of Major League Baseball said this outright yesterday at the baseball press conference. He's like, look, our product is so spread out. You got to have Apple, you got to have Peacock, you got to have this, you got to have that. And it's got to the point now where I got to pick and choose streaming services to watch what I want to watch. I got to pay a different amount. So my bills, just like it was in cable, and now I got 18. We just circled back to cable, but just more complicated.
And now people are coming up with the genius suggestion to find a way to put the MLB app and the NFL app and Peacock and blah, 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 all in one plan. And they call it a bundle.
Yeah.
And that's what cable
We're
was.
a cable,
And I agree with you. You're certain the technology, again, we're changing terms. The technology is slightly different, but it's really the same thing. By the way, I never cut the cord just because there's too much going on with cable. There's too much of a beneficial factor. If you're a non-sports person, which I don't think you, me, anyone listening here on the Fan Upstate, no one is. But, like, I can understand it from a non-sports perspective if you want to watch a little bit of news and some dramas or something. From the sports perspective, there was zero value to me in cutting the cable. And so I never got to that point. I'm glad I never did. I still had to get some streaming services to make sure I can see what I want. But I'm not cutting the cable then, and I'm not going to do it now.
Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game in Atlanta, here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Let's talk about the other part of the conversation that Greg Sankey made waves with yesterday, and that was saying, hey, Tony Petitti and I, we talked 4 out of the 5 days last week. We're trying to get on the same page because, again, they that have the goal make the rules. We're going to expand to 16. That is an inevitability. But he said we're far apart on what that format is. The SEC coaches said at Spring Media Day, or said at spring meetings down in Destin, they want a 5+11. Sankey seems to be backing them on that. Tony Petitti in the Big Ten went the 4-4-2-2 plus model. They are pretty standard to that. My take is, I saw a lot of people talking about it. I heard a lot of people here talking about that yesterday. And, does this threaten expansion or whatever? And my take was no, because at the end of the day, there's a third group involved in this, and they might be the most important group, which is the networks. And if you tell the networks, we're going to give you 4 more teams, which means we're going to give you 2 more games, and we can stretch college football's playoffs out longer. And Lord knows we're watching, whether it's 3 weeks or 15, we're watching every game. There's too much money on the table not to expand. So it's not will it in 2026. It's just a matter of, is it 5+11? Is it 4-4-2-2-2? Is it some, and I don't know that one exists, but some weird hybrid in the middle? Maybe it's like a 2-2-2-2, and then the SEC gets priority. I don't know what it looks like, but the reality is there's too much on the table not for this thing to expand to 16 and not to do it next year if that is what these networks, including ESPN, ultimately want.
Yeah, speaking of ESPN, we just wrapped up my show, and we were talking with Heather Dinich of ESPN, and I asked her a very similar question. It's just like, hey, man, the reason we're talking about expanding the basketball tournament is because of the financials involved. And the reason that we're talking about expanding the college football playoff are the financials involved. The schools get an extra $400 million or whatever the number was when they went from 4 teams out to 12. I think ultimately it will expand. I think the question is the format. It's going to expand. I definitely agree with you. I think the SEC is going to win out, whatever choice of their format is going to be. And the difference is, I don't know what the Big Ten's doing. I really don't know what their plan is. The SEC has looked at numbers. They have gone over year after year after year, going back a long time over the past however many years, 30, 40 years of what the field could have been. and determined that, hey, it is more beneficial to have the one auto and a bunch of at-larges for our conference than it is to have 4 autos and maybe we don't get an at-large. And so they're going to stick with that because they've determined through, and I know everyone's into analytics nowadays, but they've determined through the right metrics and study and math that it is more beneficial. I get it that the Big Ten and SEC are trying to talk. It's very convenient for Petitti to have kind of the, quote, final word, right? It would be an absolute disaster for the Big Ten and Petitti if they had held their media days first and then Greg Sankey just comes on and completely nixed everything. At least now he can build a response and try and maybe publicly talk the SEC into joining forces again because they were aligned.
Yeah.
And then the meetings down in Destin came and they were no longer aligned. Yeah. And I think it was because of that study, because of that math, that the coaches and the ADs and ultimately Greg Sankey said, this is not what's in our best interest.
When that news dropped, I was on the air when that article, I think Heather put that article up, but when that news dropped, I was that the coaches all wanted the 5+11 and that Sankey came out and backed it. It was the first time in a long time I was genuinely like, what now?
It was so out of nowhere because they had been aligned. And for 2 or 3 months, the reporting of is here's the format that these 2 big conferences want that are definitely screwing over the little guys, right? For sure. Like without question, you're maxed out at 2, you're maxed out at 2, you're maxed out at 1. All of these at-larges are going to go to us. That was where we were headed with the 4-4-2-2-1. And now the SEC is like, cool beans, man. This might have helped both of us, but this other one might help us even more than it's going to help you. And we're going to play by that. It did come out of nowhere. I'm fascinated by it, and you just don't see a public split like that when there's money on the line, where there's
and on the drop of a dime. Like that was the shocking part for sure. Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game in Atlanta here on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. All right, let's talk a little ball here. We are, in the next day or two, as the media members here in attendance, going to be voting on predicted order of finish in the Southeastern Conference, picking the top teams, etc. I came into this place thinking I'm putting Georgia number 1.
Okay.
I'm coming into here thinking I'm Georgia number 1. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm intrigued. I'm not saying I'm sold on it. I'm intrigued by Gunnar Stockton. At the end of the day, Kirby Smart's the dog until somebody knocks him off. Absolutely. I look at the fact that not only does Texas have Georgia and Ohio State, those are both away games that they've got to play this year.
It sounds like there's a hold on, but coming.
There's not no. Genuinely, my question is, I am looking at Georgia and what I assume is going to be the 2028 Philadelphia Eagles defense that they will field this year. I came into this thinking I'm putting Georgia number 1, and even after hearing from the 4 teams we heard of yesterday, and obviously we're going to hear from Texas, we're going to hear from Alabama, Kalen DeBoer later in the week, etc. I haven't found a reason to I'm looking for a reason to talk myself out of that.
Yeah.
I don't have one other than Arch Manning, and I don't think it's unfair to have questions about Arch just like you do about Gunnar Stockton.
Well, but here's the fascinating thing for me in regards to Texas, and I have Georgia at number 1 along with you, but almost more by default because I don't trust anyone else. I don't necessarily trust Georgia because I think Gunnar Stockton's the total wild card. I think their receiver room is supposed to be significantly better, but a lot of them are young or transfers. We haven't seen a lot from them. I think they're a total wild card. The defense is, in theory, not as revved up and ramped up as they have been in years past. I call BS on that. I think by midway through the season, you're going to be like, I can't believe we didn't have a first-round grade on this guy or that guy. That's just how I know Georgia develops and rolls dudes in. The question for me isn't about Arch Manning, because I think the other discussion is Texas.
Yeah.
I get it. We can kind of loosely, if we want to force a discussion of South Carolina or LSU, I can break those down and tear them all down if you want me to. The question is about Texas. And one, I agree with you. I don't really know what Arch Manning is to be able to be like Heisman contender, number 1 draft pick, blah, blah, blah. Like, we're just coming off a year where we had Carson Beck as all those.
Yeah.
And Georgia was still competitive despite the fact that not even in the first round, had to transfer, nowhere near the Heisman discussion, all of those things that went around it. And so I'm not going to throw another SEC quarterback that I haven't really seen perform into that discussion. The thing for me, though, is I don't think it's about Arch. I think it's about the rest of the team.
Sure.
They lost so much talent at receiver.
Matthew Golden's going to be a stud in the NFL.
He's not the only one that went. They lost a ton of talent along the defensive line. I was talking with Chip Brown of 24/7 here, covers Texas, and he's like, yeah, but their whole new offensive line has been working with the second team with Arch Manning last year. I'm like, all I heard was you got a bunch of guys who are running second team O-line, and that's just a real concern. I'm not saying they're not up to it, right? Texas reloads the same way Ohio State does, the same way Georgia does. It could be revved up, but I got so many questions about the Longhorns beyond just Arch Manning that I just have a tough time, a little bit of hesitancy putting them above Georgia right now. So I'm with you.
I like it. I want to get your thoughts on, because you mentioned a couple of teams that I think are interesting, and I think you hit all the things I was going to say about Texas. So instead, let's look at that tier 2 list. I think Alabama's on it. Nobody wants to be the dude that follows the dude. Nobody wants to be the guy that follows the GOAT. Big shoes for Kalen DeBoer. I really like Kalen DeBoer. Questions at quarterback. Is Simpson the guy?
How do you not bring him?
Yeah.
How do you not bring him?
Yeah.
And the fact that, and this goes back to Georgia bringing Gunnar Stockton. We talked to a lot of people in and around that cover the Bulldogs, did not expect Gunnar to be here. They thought it was going to be Oscar Delp representing the offense. The fact that Georgia brings Gunnar Stockton speaks volumes. The fact that Alabama sat or left Ty Simpson speaks volumes. Now, the one thing I will say about Bama is those dudes can get it on the outside. Bernard and Ryan Williams can get it on the outside. And so he's going to have help, right? He's going to definitely have help, but I don't know. I mean, of all the quarterbacks we can talk about here that might be leading a team, Gunnar Stockton, Lenore Sellers, Nussmeier, Arch Manning, all these, I have the least amount of faith in Ty Simpson right now. And that to me is such a big concern that I just can't throw him up there right now.
All right. You were here yesterday as well. You saw the chaos. You saw the rock star aura that was following Lenore Sellers around. Everywhere he went, there were dudes trailing in his wake. Absolutely fair. This is a top 7, 8 Heisman odds guy. Here was the take I had, and I it sounds already like you're going to kick the legs out, and that's fine. That's why I brought you over here, to take the heat off of me for a minute. South Carolina this year is got to be a year. And again, they went 10 wins last year. They were an LSU ref stolen win or an Alabama slam their own junk at a door loss at Tuscaloosa. Either one of those results go the other way. South Carolina's in the playoff last year. So the step forward this year is get there, sneak in, last spot, whatever it takes. But I've also said the reason why it feels important is not just that it feels like the year that Shane's 4 years of culture building need to start turning into results here. But it also feels like with Lenore Sellers, which everybody's in on, we'll see if you're the outlier here. It feels like this is, if South Carolina's ever had a year to have a Tebow, to have a Newton, to have one of those guys that you go, this kid is face of this program and is going to be for a very long time. It's this year with Lenore's. And I would be concerned about there being too much pressure, except for that cat went down to Death Valley in Clemson, South Carolina last year and gutted a win out for the boys on the road. Are you in? Are you out? Where are you putting him, and where are you putting the Gamecocks because of it?
I think it was a great coincidence yesterday that both South Carolina and Vanderbilt were presenting on the same day, because I see a lot of similarities. Now, they are different tiers, right? Vanderbilt is still at one tier, and South Carolina is at a slightly different tier. I think that running it back from the culture perspective, from the quarterback perspective for both programs, though, is what you're looking for. I just don't think it's as easy as people expect it to be. And Lenore Sellers is a guy that came in without the sort of hype that a lot of SEC quarterbacks come in last year, had an incredible season. Now you're thrust into it. Now you have to back it up. Now you have to do it again. And it's the same thing with Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt. Now, Lenore's ain't talking the sort of trash that Pavia is. I understand that. And again, we're at a different tier for Vanderbilt than we are for South Carolina. The tier South Carolina talking about, well, I guess the tier Vandy's talking about is the playoffs, but that's just them talking. The tier that South Carolina is actually in is, can we make the playoffs this year? I just think it's incredibly difficult to run it back. Vanderbilt snuck up on teams last year. I think near the end of the season, when South Carolina was starting to get on a roll, they started to sneak up on teams. And by the time you're like, hey, we better get going against these guys, it was too late. I just think it's so difficult in this conference to have a breakout and follow it up with an improvement, a step forward. That's my concern with the Lenore Sellers. That's my concern with the Gamecocks, and it's certainly my concern with Pavia and Vanderbilt.
That is more than fair. Abe Gordon from 92.9. The Game in Atlanta runs this city. My guy, I'm glad we got to catch up. I'm glad we got to share the airwaves in person. Little ATL United Wednesday night. Your boy's going to the first MLS game of the season.
I was going to ask if you were headed there.
Yeah.
I'll be up in the press box. Got pregame and postgame duties. So
fancy.
I didn't have to respond
Shut
to
up.
the
You're
email.
going for the catered meal. Be honest.
You want to see my credential?
You're the best, buddy. Good to see you.
You too, bro.
Abe Gordon, 92.9 The Game on here in Atlanta. You can also follow him on X at Abe Gordon. You can follow us into the next segment. We're back after this on the Rob Brown Show live from SEC Media Days in Atlanta, Georgia at the College Football Hall of Fame. This is the Fan Upstate. The Rob Brown Show live at the College Football Hall of Fame here in Atlanta, Georgia for day number 2 of Southeastern Conference Media Days. Coming up later on today, we will open the morning session with the Auburn Tigers and the Georgia Bulldogs. As a matter of fact, I'm looking in, you may be able to see it on the stream, but hey, there's Hugh Freeze right there, the head coach of the Auburn Tigers at the podium giving his speech right now. We will.
It's such a cool angle for you.
Isn't it great?
I mean, be able to see that. Yeah.
Especially when I turned around yesterday. We talked about this in the first hour of the show. Yesterday was Ole Miss. And of course, everybody's favorite college football head coach / online internet troll in person, Lane Kiffin, was here. And Lano, AKA, and I'm calling him this for this week because of what I'm about to tell you. Joey Freshwater rolled up in this bad boy yesterday. And I turned around because he was speaking in the afternoon, so we were obviously not on the air, and I had a handful of moments between interviews to chime in, to pop into the stream and listen to Joey Freshwater's speech. And so I'm like, oh, he's like right there. While I'm listening on the headsets, I should turn around and watch Lane. So I turned around, and Lane was speaking right there where Hugh Freeze is currently at the podium giving his State of the Union for the Auburn Tigers. And I looked, and Lane had on, first off, $1 million suit. Why wouldn't he? Because he has $1 million. So he's got on $1 million suit. And then I looked. Now, the one thing that I have noticed, not here, but just in general, is that the suit with sneakers combination has, like, that's just the norm now, all right? That's just the mainstream. You wear a suit, but you can throw on some kicks. Now, they got to be nice, all right? Don't put on your lawn cutting slippers, all right? Don't roll up in here with your 1987 Air Monarchs or whatever. Like, you got to put on some nice kicks to do it. You got to put on some J's. You got to put on some Air Force Ones. You got to put on.
So you're saying even if they're brand new, so you're saying they have to be of a certain,
if you're going to wear them with a suit, they've got to reflect that you are dressing up the suit, not dressing it down.
What if you're 75 years old and you could care less?
Well, then you could care less. But if you are, let's say hypothetically, standing down there representing your entire university, right? Like if there is a level of representation of other people that you command by being you and doing the thing, then yeah, put in a little effort. And so Lane shows up.
Well, who do you expect to have the best sneaker game? It would be Lane, right?
Without there are 2 dudes in the game that is the correct answer for. Mack Brown has always been one. And I would even go so far as to say that Mack Brown may be the college football coach that took the suits with sneakers game and made it the mainstream. All right. I did a philanthropic event down in Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Golly, probably 15 years ago when Mack Brown was the head coach of the Texas Longhorns back during the Vince Young era. I did an event there, and Mack Brown was a keynote speaker for the All Sports Association. Mack rolled up to this event. It was a banquet. It was a fish fry banquet. So, like kind of informal, but still, Mack Brown is showing up as the head coach of the University of Texas. He's showing up to rep the Horns, right? Mack Brown showed up in dress slacks and a dress shirt, and he had on a pair of custom tailored Jordans that matched him top to bottom, to the point that I brought it up at the time, and I was in my mid-20s, and I'm like, Coach, shoe game strong. And that's been a thing. Go look at any picture of Mack Brown, whether it's at Texas or North Carolina or in retirement, and the shoe game is always strong. He's a Jordan guy, because he's a Carolina guy. He's a Jordan guy, and they're always perfect to the suit. Lane Kiffin is number 2. So I looked down at Lane, and I looked at the feet because he had on jet black sneakers with just the little white logo on the side. Now, it matched the suit. The suit was like gray with black trim. He had the jacket inlay was a bunch of Ole Miss logos. It was pretty dope. But I looked, and these jet black sneakers jumped out at me for whatever reason. So being the weirdo that I am, I took my cell phone, and I zoomed in on the kicks. And I actually posted them on Twitter at The Rob Brown Show if you want to follow me over there. I zoomed in on the kicks. Lane rolled up in some Gucci sneakers. And I don't say Gucci like the way that the kids use Gucci, like Gucci is good, like Gucci means nice and expensive or whatever. I mean, they were literally Gucci sneakers. Lonzo, back in the first segment when I brought this up and pointed that out to him, Lonzo went and looked up the Gucci sneakers, and they run you about how much, Great One?
About 1,000.
About a G, about a strat, about a gur. All right. Lane rolled up to SEC Media Days, stood right down there on that podium down there, rocking $1,000 to $1,100 sneaks, and pulled it off, man. I got to tell you, I'm not cool enough that I could throw on Gucci sneakers and get away from it. I can rock a pair of Jordans, no problem. I can throw on some AF1s, get away with it. I absolutely cannot pull off a pair of Gucci sneakers.
What do you think the resale on the Gucci sneaker is?
I don't know. Is
worn once or twice? You could put it on that one thing you see commercials for all the time where people are selling their clothes.
Yeah, throw it up on the resale website. I don't know is the answer. Here's what I do know. What I do know is you could sell them for 70% of what they cost, and I still ain't buying them. All right. Now, I'm not a big sneaker guy. I got a handful of pairs of good sneakers. I got the Jordans I bought for the wedding. I did buy another pair of Jordans not too long ago that are for they're blue and orange for the Greenville Swamp Rabbits. So I'll be rocking those at Swamp Rabbit games next year. I got a couple of pair of custom high top Chucks, like the old Chuck Taylors. I've got a couple of pair of Vans skate shoes, like they're upscaled Vans that I had customized, whatever. I probably got like 6 pairs of shoes, different colors, whatever.
By the way, I'm not a shoe guy, but here's all the custom-made shoes that I have.
In fairness, though, where I was going with that is those shoes were all like the most expensive shoes I own. I think the wedding shoes ended up at like $160, but that was for my wedding day justified. All the rest of them are like $120, $130, absolute top end. Lane could walk up there right now and be like, yo, do you want these Gucci kicks for $500, half of what I paid? And I'd be like, nah, I'm all right, dog. I'm good. I don't need them.
What if he autographed them?
Nah, I still don't need them. Listen, I'd say what I did. I'll tell you what, Lane. What if instead of me giving you $500 for sneaks, what do you say you and I go hit Magic City later? What do you say you and I go hit Magic City and get some lemon pepper wings later on in the show? Which, by the way, I am doing tonight.
I know you keep saying it. You've said it for years. You haven't done it yet. All I can say is, please show up tomorrow.
Has there been a better opportunity?
I mean, because if you do go,
Here's the thing. This is true. This is why I know these wings are legit. And I had this pointed out to me yesterday because I was talking to somebody yesterday about this. One of the other broadcasters that's here, we were talking about it towards the end of the day. He's like, yo, what are we getting in? Hey, buddy, I've made a buddy the last day or two. He's like, what are you getting into tonight? Where are you going tonight? Whatever. And I said, tonight I'll probably low, but tomorrow we got a little reception of the media reception down at a bar in downtown. And I said, after that's over, I'm probably going to head to Magic City. I want to get the wings. We were talking about lemon pepper Lou and all that. And he's like, I have wanted to do that too. And I was like, here's the thing, man. Like, I'm 40, I'm married, I'm old. I don't want to be out till night. And I don't really even, like, I'm not really, this is not a joke. Nobody believes me. I'm like, I don't really want to go to the strip club. I want the wings. If Lemon Pepper Lou was willing to break the COVID bubble to get Magic City wings, and I'm here, I got to go. I don't really care about the strip club. I'm going to keep it a buck.
Nope.
I'm married.
Nope.
My wife walks around that way in the house all
Nope.
the time. I'm good. All right. I'm treated well. Then he said, wait. I got to tell you this part before you judge. He said, here's the thing, Rob Brown. To get the wings, you don't have to go in. They literally now, these wings have gotten so big after the 2020 COVID year with Lemon Pepper Lou, who maybe dropped the greatest advertisement for anything ever. He said they now have takeout at Magic City. You can roll up. You don't have to go into the strip club. They got a little section to the side. You walk up, you order at the counter just like fast food. They bag it up, they hand it to you. You take it back to the crib. I don't even have to go in Magic City to get the Magic City wings. I can roll up, get them takeout, bring them back to the hotel, and knock them back and do my review from there.
All right. First of all, do the strippers work the window? I'm just curious about that.
I don't know. And personally, I don't care. Make that money, young lady. Do your
the
thing.
other thing, I've never been to those type of establishments, never will. But if you're going to a world famous place, shouldn't you go in and see why it's world famous? I'm just curious.
Here's the thing. And this is going to sound like I'm being sarcastic, and I'm not. There are gentlemen's clubs around these United States, there are gentlemen's clubs that are famous for the gentlemen's clubbing. All right. There's a bar called in Tampa called Mons Venus. This place has been around for a gazillion years, and that's where all the NFL and NBA players go. That place is known for you can go Tuesday at 10 in the morning, and there is a 10 of 10 Sports Illustrated swimsuit cover model knockout on stage.
Is
Magic
that where Val
City,
Venus is from?
No, that's a different Venus. Mons Venus is famous for the girls, for the entertainers, for the performers. This place is not known for the talent. This place is known for the wings and the food and it just being a vibe. As a matter of fact, I had a co-host on Saturday, Sean Bell, on the BetMGM network. And Sean used to be down this way. And I said, Sean, look, man, because he's telling me, he's like, you got to go. And I said, here's the thing, dude. I'm going to roll up there on a Tuesday afternoon. I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want to roll up in there as an average, fat, out of shape, middle-aged white dude and have everybody in there be like, yo, what's this cat doing here? And he said to me, I promise you it's going to be the most demographically diverse place you've ever been. There are people from every walks of life, rich, poor, black, white. It doesn't matter. Everybody's there. And he said, here's the thing. 20% of the people are there for the dancers. 80% are there for the wings because they are that good. So that's it. That's it. Like, it's got to happen. I've been waiting for the chance to review the lemon pepper wings. Wings so good, my man broke the bubble and risked an NBA paycheck for it. I got to try it. I think tonight's the night. We'll see how it plays out.
I hope you're not disappointed in the wings after all this hype.
I know, dude. If we've been building up for 5 years and they're not that good, or worse, I've built them up so high in my head that they can't live up to it, that's going to be disappointing. But
no, you'd never do that.
I know, right? I've had nobody say I'm going to do anything but love them. All right, we got to run to a break. When we come back, we wrap up the show. I got a little bit more sound from yesterday. I'll let you know what we got going on the rest of today, and we'll carry you off into day 2 of SEC Media Days live from the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia, presented by Ingles. It's a special edition of the Rob Brown Show here on the Fan Upstate.
Live from SEC Media Days at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, you're listening to a special...
Ingles Supermarkets. Low prices, love the savings. We are honored to be here. Hugh Freeze just got done with his initial press conference a few moments ago. The Auburn Tigers and Georgia Bulldogs are the two teams in the morning session. We are awaiting Kirby Smart and his dogs to arrive here in just a few minutes. And, of course, we will clip up some sound. Again, let me tell you, because I've been asked, like, who are you having on and when are you having on, Rob? Let me tell you how this has effectively worked out. The Southeastern Conference basically said that you have to schedule interviews with their sports information directors. I have put in to schedule interviews with the SIDs. I have heard back from some of them. I have heard back from others saying, unfortunately, we do not have the time, because all of these schools are effectively, they effectively have like an hour to 2 hours top end when they are here. And so what's happened for a lot of them is they obviously schedule the outlets that cover them first. They obviously schedule the big time networks, the ESPNs, the Fox Sports, etc. second. And then whatever time they have left after that, they distribute to the rest of everybody. And that unfortunately does include South Carolina. We got yesterday, did get 2 interviews. Very happy to have had DQ Smith and Nick Barrett. Played the DQ Smith interview earlier. I will be posting both of those interviews a little bit later on the social media pages across the Fan Upstate. So make sure you check those out. But what I get is what I get. I do know confirm right now. I have Peter Burns from the SEC Network today, Benjamin Watson from the SEC Network tomorrow, and then fingers crossed, not promised, hopefully Laura Rutledge on Thursday. Those are confirmed. David Nuno from Texags Live is going to join us later on today. He has been covering the SEC for 20 plus years now. He is going to join us today. I will record that interview. I am working on Josh Pate of CBS Sports. Had a very brief conversation with him earlier this morning, and he said he would try to stop by later on today. They have a lot of live hits they are doing this afternoon, so no promises on Josh Pate. We are working on that. And then as we get players and coaches handed to us, because basically they write back and they say, okay, we've got you on our list, and if we can get you there, we'll get you there. As I get guys, I'll post them on the social media as we go. Now, before we get up out of here, I want to play you, and Lonzo and I are going to play a little round of Hold Up. All right, the game is very simple. I am going to play you the longest form audio we got from Shane Beamer yesterday, his full Q&A press conference, and I'm just going to start playing it. And as we go and as we get answers and questions asked of Shane Beamer for the next handful of minutes, if Lonzo and I want to say something in response, we'll just say, hold up. I'll stop the audio, and then we'll pick it back up. Here was some of the time that Shane Beamer spent talking to the public yesterday.
We got better as the season went on. I think you always look at a team, how do they improve from week 1 to the end of the season? And there's no question we all improved as the season went. So that'll be critical to do. We were very opportunistic on defense in regards to taking the ball away and creating turnovers. We need to continue to do that. And then I think for us, it would be a lot that we can be better at. You're always looking at how you can improve, but a couple things. We need to be better at protecting the football offensively, and we'd like to score more touchdowns in the red zone. You look at us, I think we had the same number of trips to the red zone last year that Alabama did, but yet they had, I want to say, 7 more touchdowns than we did. So we need to make sure when we get down there, it's hard to score in this league, as you guys know. When we get down there, we need to make sure we're converting those drives into touchdowns.
Front row and then pass it to your left.
Hey, Shane, your 5th SEC Media Days as Carolina's head coach. What would you say is the difference in how this program is perceived from that first year to now this year?
This was my favorite question and answer, by the way.
I think about this every year, coming to this event in 2021 over in Hoover, and there weren't very many expectations for that team. There was a national reporter that week that said the ceiling for our program in 2021 was 2 wins was the ceiling. And now here we are 5 years later, and y'all are having conversations about Lenora Sellers being a Heisman Trophy candidate, and People are talking about this team being a playoff team, and we embrace that, Rick. We embrace the expectations, but it's certainly changed in regards to how we're seen. There's more attention on us and more people that want to talk about South Carolina football than what there was in 2021. But we're also very respectful and very cognizant of the fact that it's truly year to year. Every season's a new season. We've come a long way since 2021, but we're not slowing down by any stretch of the imagination, and understanding that we did a lot in 24, but 25 is a new year. And regardless of what people are saying about us or how we're perceived, we ultimately have to go play and coach good football, and that's what we're trying to do.
All right, hold up. I want to respond to that very quickly, because Shane said something there that kind of echoed, and I think was said even better yesterday by Nick Barrett, defensive lineman for the Gamecocks. I asked Nick yesterday a very similar question. I said, all right, you were part of the team last year. You guys got to 10 wins, but you also got left out. You were likely the first team out. And if LSU goes the other way, if Alabama goes the other way, you're probably in the playoffs. I said, how much of that is a chip on the shoulder for you guys this year? How much is that a driving factor? How much is that of that is an inspiration for you guys to, when you get into those close games, to kind of have an idea of how much is going to be on the line? And do you feel like maybe that's going to add too much pressure? And Nick Barrett said, Lonzo, I think you'll like this quote too. He said, look, it's obviously a motivating factor. It's obviously something we're considering. It's obviously something that's going to be fresh in our minds. It's obviously something that we will be thinking about, especially when we get into those close games against good teams. He said, but here's the thing. This is not 2024 part 2. This is 2025. It's a new movie. It's a new setup. It's a new scene. It's a new team. There's new actors. And I'm paraphrasing. I'm spicing up what he said. But he said, direct quote, this is not 2024 part 2. This is 2025. We have different goals, higher goals, loftier goals, higher ambitions, higher drive. And the success we are looking for is not to try to say, oh, you guys screwed us last year. Oh, we should have been there last year. The success we want to have this year is because that's who we are, because that's what we want to be. We don't want to be a new version of the 2024 South Carolina Gamecocks. We want to be the 2025 Gamecocks. We want to be the 2025 Gamecocks, a team that is talked about, a team that is remembered, a team that achieves something that goes down into the history books in Columbia, South Carolina, and here at the College Football Hall of Fame. We don't want to do it as revenge for last year. We want to do it because we know we are good enough to do it this year. And when I hear that, and when I hear that answer from Shane Beamer in yesterday's Q&A, Lonzo, like I said, maybe I am looking at this through rose or garnet and black color glasses. Maybe I am saying this because I am optimistic because, hey, if they pull off everything they say they want to pull off, my job's going to get a lot easier and we're going to make a little bit more money on top of it. Maybe I am being an optimist here, but I believe Shane, I believe Nick, I believe DQ. These guys are not talking in the cliches of, oh, gotta let the past be in the past, eyes forward, only goals that are ahead of us matter, blah, blah, blah. When he said, we are not doing 2024 part 2, we are doing 2025 part 1. We want this team to be remembered for what this team did, not what they did in response to last year's team. I bought in, dude.
Yeah, when you climb the steps so high that there's only a few more steps and you can actually see that goal over there, you don't want to stay on that same step. You want to keep going. And, yeah, I think that sounds awesome.
I agree.
I am very excited.
I agree.
And now, the Rob Brown Show presents Twitter.
All right, time for a quick look at what the X is going on. First thing it's Xing is your boy, Pat McAfee.
Pat McAfee Xing for a couple of reasons. Number one, yesterday he hosted most of Major League Baseball's all-star activities over at Truist Park in Atlanta. The reason he's Xing, though, is because MLB, and unfortunately Pat McAfee was at the podium when this happened, MLB got asked the question. You guys pulled the all-star game from Atlanta back in 2020, and you said it was over restrictive voting laws. Those voting laws in Georgia did not change, and yet you brought the all-star game back here anyway, which I think is a fair and valid question to ask. I just don't know why it needed to be directed at Pat McAfee in that spot. I am fine with somebody asking Rob Manfred or the rest of the baseball administrative office that question, because I think it's a question that deserves to be answered for those of us where sports and politics blend. But to throw that question at Pat McAfee when he's on the stage just kind of felt weird.
Yeah, there's several reasons why he's Xing. That's one. The other one is some people not very happy with how he did the things last night.
I saw a lot of that too, and I actually got into a debate last night on social media with somebody who was like, "Oh, Pat McAfee ruins everything," and I'm like, "God, like I get it. If Pat was showing up to baseball games, like regular season baseball games, and talking like that, I'd be like probably a little much." The home run derby's fun. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a goofy, fun thing that is electrifying and has a great atmosphere. I watched every swing last night by myself in a hotel room, and I had a ball watching the big dumper go big dong over and over. I love the vibe Pat McAfee brings to sports. I'm not saying it needs to be everywhere or honestly in any games, but something like a home run derby is tailor-made for that guy.
All right, the next thing that's Xing is Joy Taylor.
Joy Taylor released by Fox Sports yesterday. In fact, not only did they release Joy Taylor, but they also caught Craig Carton's Breakfast Ball, and they caught, what was the other one? Speak, which I think had Emmanuel Acho on it. Like, they cut, I think, 3 shows yesterday, 2 of which Joy Taylor was a part of, and released her from her contract outright. Now, obviously, remember, last year there was a bunch of controversy about some behind-the-scenes behavior of Joy Taylor and some other execs she was involved with, and I think it would be silly not to say that had something to do with it, but a seismic shift in the sports talkosphere yesterday on FS1.
All right, last one, Roman Reigns.
Return last night. I did not watch it, obviously, as I was watching the Derby and doing work. I have it on the DVR to watch at some point this week, but probably would have watched at least the last segment had I known that our tribal chief was making his return. Acknowledge him. That's going to do it for the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Peter Burns, will interview him later in the day. I'll play that for you tomorrow. David Nuno of Texags Live will do the same thing. He's been covering football 20 years, working on Josh Pate, Laura Rutledge, Ben Watson tomorrow, and more. Follow us on social media at The Fan Upstate and at The Rob Brown Show. I'll keep you updated throughout the day. That's going to do it. I appreciate you being here. Thanks again to Ingles for being our sponsor and, getting us here. And thanks to you for listening. For Lonzo, I'm Rob Brown. We'll see you back here tomorrow to do it all over again, but better on the Rob Brown Show and the Fan Upstate. Later.
Live from SEC Media Days at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, you're listening to a special edition of the Rob Brown Show, powered by your...
All right, boys. Let's lock in for 8 more hours of work here at the College Football Hall of Fame.
You got this.
This is, for the record, this is the best office I've ever worked in. And I include our office, Lonzo. I'm sorry. I love the Fortress of Nerditude. It is homey, and I feel wonderful. But to look around this place and to see what I'm seeing in the exhibits and the history and the legacy and the people and the college football media stars and yada, 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 this is cool, dude. Like, this is one of those times that I go, I don't work in this industry because they pay me a lot. Clearly, I work in this industry because we get to do awesome stuff like this.
Yeah, you do look like you're having fun. And I've been remarking when you've been gone on the stream about how good the background looks. That looks really, really cool.
Yeah,
it really does.
I almost thought I wanted to, and I might tomorrow, I wanted to actually raise this camera up and do like a more like top-down angle, but then I have to look up at it the whole time. I will say, for those of you that are still on the stream with us right now, I will be probably in about 2 hours, probably around noon, because that is when we have a break in the SEC, the hot, spicy college football action. When we get to around noon, somewhere between 12 and 12:30, I am going to go live on the social media channels again, and I will give y'all a mini tour of the upstairs. We're not allowed to stream anything live video-wise from downstairs because this may shock you. The SEC network holds all of the rights to video downstairs, but upstairs we can. So around 12 or 12:30, I will go live on my phone, and I will take you on a quick tour of the upstairs of the College Football Hall of Fame. Before I do that, I will tell all of you this, and I haven't even really gotten to experience the full majesty of this place yet because it is closed to the public. Most of the exhibits are not up and running. They're kind of like in display mode only. But I will tell you that as somebody who is a college football fan, I texted a couple of buddies yesterday and I was like, boys, we're going to have to put like in early August before college football kicks up. We're going to have to put together like an early August Sunday roadie to come over here and actually do this place when it is open and when it is fully engaged, because as incredible as it is to see everything, I can't imagine it's not cranked up to 11 when, you know, there's fight songs playing in the background over the speakers and the interactive exhibitions, of which there are many, are open and running. So I look forward to that. But yeah, make sure you come back here around probably right at or shortly after noon. I will go live again, and I'll give you guys kind of a mini tour of the upstairs of the College Football Hall of Fame. And with that, we're out, dudes. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Hope you enjoy the show. Come back tomorrow because we have 4 more hours. See you then. Have a great day. Hasta luego.